2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
Live from the Play Show, yet not overly ostentatious studios of the Infinity Sports Network. This is a Monday edition of the Zach Gelb Show across all the great local Infinity Sports Network affiliates, Sirius XM, channel 158, the free Odyssey app, and of course streaming live on YouTube. 855-212-4227 is the number to jump on in, and you could always get at me on Instagram, where I'm straight flexing, or via the good old cesspool of Twitter, at Zach Gelb. That's ZACHGELB. Got Stuart Kovacs, got Moist Mike, rocking and rolling with me as we are here all the way up until 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific today. We'll do a ton of NFL draft recap. Charles Davis, the excellent CBS Sports NFL analyst, he's going to stop by at 5 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Pacific. But we have to start off with the association. As you look at the last 4 years of Phoenix Suns basketball, and I know there's been a bunch of different players. I know that they've been having a bunch of different lineups on the court. But the last 4 years, after getting to the NBA Finals, and then they're in the NBA Finals up against the Bucks, they have a 2-0 lead, and then they blow it, and they lose 4 games in a row, where it was Bucks and 6, Bucks and 6. So you saw that team lose in the Finals, and then after that, you saw a lethargic performance at home in an elimination game up against the Dallas Mavericks, where they got run out of their own building. Then last year, after getting Kevin Durant in an elimination game, and I get it's going up against Denver, and we know what Denver turned out to be, they allowed Denver to score 81 points in the first half, which is crazy. And the game was over at halftime. And last night, there wasn't an embarrassing individual moment. Like, it wasn't as bad when you look at the massacre that did occur in the elimination games up against the Mavericks, up against the Denver Nuggets. But when you're going up against a Minnesota Timberwolves team, who is better than you, that is clear. They are the 3 seed. You are the 6 seed. You can't win one lousy game. You get swept. So the last 4 years, really 3 ever since getting into the NBA Finals and blowing a 2-0 lead, this team has just been a disaster. And they have went out there and gone out there, and they've made moves. And last year, they acquired the services of Kevin Durant. We know that they just recently brought in Bradley Beal, and they tried to tell you that this was a big 3. We know this isn't a big 3. There's not a big 3 right now in the association that can rival what Golden State was doing, what Miami was doing, what Boston was doing. This is a league now of dynamic duos. And Kevin Durant and Devin Booker should be good enough to be a great dynamic duo. Bradley Beal, I feel like with Bradley Beal, we keep on getting told what he is, and he's so far removed from being that, and unfortunately, just injuries, it feels like has derailed his career, and he was in Washington for so long, and it took him so long to get out of Washington. But I want to keep this focus on Kevin Durant and also the Suns organization, who I will just say, the players in that organization have made it a gutless organization. Because it's one thing to have a disagreement with the coach. It's one thing to say a year in that you're not a fan of the coach and maybe the coach isn't connecting with the locker room. It's one thing to think that. But within moments, and this isn't hyperbole, this is just facts. Within moments of them getting eliminated, you have a Shams Charania deep dive piece into how Frank Vogel has lost his team and his future is uncertain. Think about that. Literally, within 5 minutes after the game ended, you knew Shams had it in his drafts and he pressed publish. So what does that say about the players in the locker room? They just make excuses. They're not tough enough. And I'll use LeBron James here. LeBron James has blamed coaches before. I have always had this stance with LeBron James. When you are the king, when you are considered one of the greatest players of all time, when you know the clout that LeBron James has had in every organization that he's been on and he's been with, I will never blame the coach as reason number one why you didn't win. And guess what? When you do win, I won't say reason number one was because of the coach. Kevin Durant and the teams that he has been on, ever since trying to become the villain and then not embracing the villain role, I don't think you could blame Steve Kerr. I don't think you could blame Kenny Atkinson, Jacques Vaughn. I don't think you could blame Frank Vogel as number one reason why those teams weren't able to win when the years that they didn't win. And that, to me, is so weak when you have detailed reporting within minutes after the game ending about how Frank Vogel was very vocal in the last few days and he was losing his mind because he was trying to rally the team and the team didn't take him seriously. Or this nonsense and this absolute hogwash that, oh, Kevin Durant, he didn't feel comfortable in his role. And you know what? I saw the article, and it's not just coming from KD and his camp. It's coming from Bradley Beal. It's coming from other members in the organization. It's coming from Devin Booker. I'm not naive, and I'm going to be fair to Kevin Durant, and I'm not going to say that this is all coming from Kevin Durant. But we know Kevin Durant's voice is the most imperative in this. Whether it's actually things that he said in the article or things that he told his team to relay via sources to Shams Charania. So I wanted to hear Kevin Durant's full post-game press conference. And I went back after the game yesterday, and I watched 9-10 minutes that he was made available, and he gave the same answer over and over and over again. Whenever he was offered an opportunity to blame someone or make an excuse, and remember, this comes moments after getting eliminated. He had some time to cool down. Shams Charania didn't cool down. Everyone knew about this article when Kevin Durant got to the podium. And all Kevin Durant said was there's context to everything. You know, I would like to give context, but anytime I give context, it would be viewed as an excuse. That tells me all I need to know about Kevin Durant. he didn't even have the cojones to say what he was actually feeling, and he used it as, oh, well, he'll be made out to look like the bad guy. Can't we just be honest? Aren't we men? You don't like the coach? Say you don't like the coach. You don't think the coach's offense is being efficiently orchestrated? Then say it. Don't just run to your team, or don't just run to Shams Charania and hide behind that. And I'm not even saying I'm the biggest Frank Vogel fan in the world, but he's not reason number one why the Suns didn't succeed this year. He's not reason number one why the Suns got their ass kicked by the Minnesota Timberwolves. You watch those games, Minnesota wanted it more. Minnesota has a leader in Anthony Edwards, and they follow everything he does. And he'll kill you from behind the arc. He'll throw thunderous jams in your face, and he doesn't give a rat's ass. Like, I don't know what Minnesota's going to do. I know that Denver will probably say goodbye to the Lakers tonight and eliminate them. Sorry, Stu. But Minnesota has a chance to beat Denver. And I've sat here the entire year, and I've said I will not pick against Denver in these playoffs. And I won't. I'm not going to pick against Denver. But Minnesota isn't going to lose this series to Denver because, the moment was too big for them. And they were, too premature to the stage. No. Anthony Edwards isn't playing around. And Anthony Edwards is turning into one of the biggest stars in the NBA. And that's a guy that will win an MVP one day. But I look at Kevin Durant, and whether it's fair or not to put this on him or make him the talking point today, I'm thoroughly disappointed with KD. And this is not someone that was a Kevin Durant hater all the time. I'll tell you now, I don't like Kevin Durant anymore. I just think he's phony. I think he's disingenuous. And he was someone that tried to make a move that I didn't even really have a problem with when everyone else shredded him when he went to Golden State. But he wanted to be the villain by making that move, and then he didn't go through with it. Because what would have been best for Kevin Durant's career would have just been to stay in Golden State. And then this conversation of, he had to take the easy way out to the championship and an easy way out to win finals, championship trophies and finals MVPs. Well, if you win 4 or 5 of them, you could give the middle finger to everybody. But KD was too concerned about what Draymond was saying. He was too concerned what social media was saying. And he elected to go to Brooklyn. And Brooklyn was a disaster. And that was his ship that he was running. And he couldn't have the honest, transparent conversation with Kyrie Irving. And that was what derailed that situation in Brooklyn. So what does he do? He bails. He goes to Phoenix. All right. And now, 2 years in at Phoenix, they had a terrible showing last year. And then this year, they never got things going. And I look at the legacy of Kevin Durant, and I don't think he'll win another championship again. But the legacy of Kevin Durant is going to be one where you're going to say all-time great player, but we're going to talk about his championships a lot differently than we do with other players. And I look at the time he was in Golden State, and if he would have just stayed there and won 4 or 5, I would have held it against him. But the fact that he left and basically wanted it to be known that he could go win with him driving the bus, well, not only has he not been able to drive the bus, he keeps on driving the bus off the road in Brooklyn and now in Phoenix. And that's just the reality of the situation. Like, when I think of Kevin Durant's legacy, he's a top 20 player of all time. He is not a top 10 player of all time. Bill Russell, Michael Jordan, LeBron James, Steph Curry, Tim Duncan, the late, great Kobe Bryant, Shaquille O'Neal, Larry Bird, Wilt Chamberlain, Magic Johnson, Kareem. All those guys have to be in front of Kevin Durant. Now, there's a next grouping, and KD is anywhere between, you could say 12 to 17 or 18. He's top 20. He's probably top 15, but he's not top 10. And people, even Kevin Durant, asked before the season, why isn't he considered in these GOAT debates? He's not even close. He is not in the top 10, let alone the top 5. Because when we talk about top 5, that's when you really get into the GOAT conversation. He's at a seat of the all-time greats. He's in that fraternity, but he's not at the elite table of the all-time great table. That's just the reality of the situation. And unfortunately for him, when he made that move to go to Brooklyn and now has made that move to go to Phoenix, people are going to judge him and they're going to say, yeah, he won 2 championships. Yeah, he won 2 finals MVPs. But a lot of people thought he took the easy road out. And then when he tried to prove he could do it on his own with him driving the bus, it's been a disaster. So these last few years, I've been very disappointed with KD, with all the excuses that were made in Brooklyn, and now all the excuses that are being made in Phoenix. You were in charge of this. You got to take this, really by the reins, and you got to put this on you. Instead, all I heard last night was, there's context to everything. I can't get into the context because then excuses would be made. When we know what the context was, you don't believe in the coach. And you think as the coach is the reason why you guys were held back this year. And I'm not even a Vogel fan. I'm not even saying Vogel's this great coach. But come on. What are we doing here? He's not reason number one why you guys didn't win jack this year. So, yeah, I do think Kevin Durant, ever since leaving Golden State, has done damage to his legacy. Where when it's all said and done, we all know he's going to be a Hall of Famer. We all know he's going to be a top 20 player of all time, but he's not cracking the top 10. And the only way he'll do so is if he wins a championship in Phoenix or whatever is the next stop that he goes to ride out the rest of his career. And I just thought of someone today. And you look at who's the better player. Kevin Durant is the better player than Dirk Nowitzki. But I was thinking about this, and I even texted Samter. And I'd rather have the career of Dirk Nowitzki than Kevin Durant. That's how much damage Kevin Durant has done as of late. Where, hey, if it's a conversation of would you rather have Kevin Durant or Dirk Nowitzki, it's a pretty damn good conversation. Like, I will acknowledge that. This is not just let's, destroy Kevin Durant today. But Dirk has an MVP. Kevin Durant has an MVP. I get Kevin Durant has won 2 championships. Dirk Nowitzki also won 1 championship. Kind of Dirk's 1 championship means more than Kevin Durant's 2 championships. I'm more impressed by what Dirk was able to do in one spot than where Kevin Durant's been able to do when he's jumping around. And let me say it once again. Durant is the better all-around player. But you ask me whose career I'd rather have? I'd rather have Dirk's career than Kevin Durant's career. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. This is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. How do you view the legacy of Kevin Durant? Because recently, I think his legacy has taken a hit where he was well on his way to being a top 10 player of all time. Now, I don't think he'll ever be a top 10 player of all time. He's still in the top 20. And you know what? You look at a guy like Nikola Jokic, he's already won 1. And he has 2 NBA MVPs. When it's all said and done, I think Nikola Jokic is going to go down as one of the greatest players ever. And I think Nikola Jokic will be viewed as a much better player than Kevin Durant. So what say you about the legacy of KD? 855-212-4227. The draft is over. The team that started the draft were the Chicago Bears. What are your expectations for the Bears in year 1 of the Caleb Williams era? I'll give you my answer when we return.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Listening to the Infinity Sports Network.
It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. The NFC North isn't the best division in football, but it's turning into one of the more intriguing divisions in football. And all four teams enter this NFL season with expectations that they can make the playoffs. Like the Lions, it's Super Bowl or bust this year. The Green Bay Packers, they were in the second round of the playoffs a year ago. They should be in the playoffs once again. And for teams like Minnesota and Chicago, they needed to figure out their quarterback position in this draft. And I am optimistic about both quarterback situations. Like the Vikings, maybe outside of the Bears, and you could even argue, even included the Bears, but the Vikings were a great destination for these quarterback-needy teams. The Vikings are a better destination than New England. The Vikings are a better destination than the Broncos. The Vikings are a better destination than Atlanta. They're a better destination than the Commanders because you have Justin Jefferson, you have Jordan Addison. You have TJ Hawkinson. You have Aaron Jones. And you have an offensive-minded head coach. From an offensive perspective and an offensive insight, Minnesota is a heck of a destination for J.J. McCarthy. And whoever was going to be the guy that landed in Minnesota, in some of these potential guys that were going to go there, like a Drake May, like a Michael Penix Jr., or Bo Nix, whoever the quarterback that was going to fall, was going to be put in a great position to succeed. Because sometimes it's not always about your individual talent. It's about where you go and where you land. Like, don't get me wrong. Brock Purdy had a really good season last year. Give Brock Purdy credit. But if Brock Purdy was Mr. Irrelevant in New England or was Mr. Irrelevant 2 years ago in Chicago or Mr. Irrelevant in Carolina or Mr. Irrelevant in Arizona, Brock Purdy is not the Brock Purdy the way that we view him today. So J.J. McCarthy, as long as they can figure out their defense, J.J. McCarthy can lead the Minnesota Vikings or be a part of an offense this year that gets the Minnesota Vikings to the playoffs. But then you look at Chicago. So last year, and really the last 2 years, everyone fell in love with the Lions. Like, if your football team stinks, if your football team was out of it, if you just didn't have a dog in the fight, I think all of us were pulling for the Detroit Lions in some capacity. Like, if you're a Packer fan, a Viking fan, a Bear fan, I get it why you don't want to see the Detroit Lions do well. I'm saying fans in the NFC East, fans in the NFC West, the AFC East, AFC North, AFC, like whatever. You get what I'm saying? The teams that had no direct tie-in with the Lions, rivalries or whatnot, people were pulling for Detroit last year. People wanted to see Detroit beat San Francisco in the NFC title game. People, when you got to the Final Four and you had the Ravens and you had the Chiefs and you had the Lions and you had San Francisco, people wanted Detroit to go win. Because Detroit, for all those years, have just been losers. You look at the Lions, for the most part, it's who's the quarterback every 3-4 years? Who's the coach? Who's the GM every 3-4 years? And Detroit, even though it was a different path, even though at times people are like, what the heck is this Dan Campbell? Like, I love him, but what the heck is this guy talking about? Dan Campbell and Brad Holmes have put this team in an opportunity to be a title contender for the next 2 to 3 years. They have a chance in the next 2 to 3 years to go win a Super Bowl. You look at a team like Chicago, I think around the league now with a lot of these bad teams. And remember, Chicago wasn't the number 1 overall pick because they're the worst team in the league. They were 7-10. They made that deal a year ago in the Bryce Young trade where Carolina gave them their number 1 overall pick. But Chicago hasn't had a QB in forever. And how many times does a QB go there? There's optimism, and then the GM sucks, the coach sucks, and they have no weapons to throw the ball to. Caleb Williams walks in to Chicago in year 1 with Rome Odunze after the draft. You have DJ Moore. You have Keenan Allen. You got DeAndre Swift. You got Cole Kmet. Look at the pieces on the offensive side of the ball. With a defensive-minded head coach, too. So Matt Eberflus, he's got to get that defense in a very good spot. But I look at Chicago. If Caleb Williams is as good as advertised, why can't they make the playoffs in year 1? Like C.J. Stroud just made the playoffs in year 1, took the Texans to the divisional round where they ended up losing to the Ravens in a conference in the AFC that's a whole lot tougher than the NFC. And let me remind you, C.J. Stroud wasn't walking into Rome Odunze and DJ Moore and Keenan Allen. No, he didn't have that. His best wide receiver, and no disrespect to him, he's been on the show before, I like him, is Nico Collins. And look at what the Texans were able to do in year 1. Last year showed us that things could change very quickly in the NFL. As long as you have the right coach and you have the right quarterback. And also with the Texans, let's not undermine this point, they also drafted the right defensive player in Will Anderson. It doesn't take much in the NFL to turn the direction of a franchise around. It does not. Houston displayed that last year. And Chicago is in a much better state than Houston was a year ago. So I look at Caleb Williams in a inferior NFC compared to the AFC, And I say, why can't they be the second best team in the NFC North this year? Like, everyone's going to give the benefit of the doubt, deservedly so, to Detroit to win that division. But Green Bay, even though Jordan Love had a really good year last year, and there's a lot of promise in Green Bay, we've seen guys have really good first years, and then in year 2 as a starting quarterback, you take a step back. Minnesota, we know, has a lot of names on offense. I'm a believer in McCarthy in Minnesota, but will it come together rather quickly in year 1? And there's questions on that defense, even though Brian Flores improved that defense immensely last year in year 1 as their defensive coordinator. But you look at the talent on the offensive side of the ball with Caleb Williams and what he is supposed to be, why not the Bears make the playoffs this year? I think the Bears, like, you're a Chicago fan, it's not, oh, it's year 1, there's growing pains, there are ups and downs. No. Year 1, you have suffered long enough. You have waited for this day long enough. Year 1, when you had a team that was 7-10 last year, 7-10, and you improved that team in many big areas this offseason, 10-7 makes the playoffs in the NFC. 9-8 makes the playoffs usually in the NFC. Why can't Chicago go 9-8 and make the playoffs? I don't think that's inconceivable whatsoever. Like, you look around, all right, San Francisco, the Rams, obviously better than Chicago. There's not a team like in the NFC South that you feel all that confident in that's definitely better than Chicago. You know, I would say probably the Falcons would be the team I give the edge to because of Kirk Cousins. So even if you want to give Atlanta, that's 3. And one of those teams have to win their division. Detroit, better than Chicago. Eagles, better than Chicago. You know, Dallas, I'm kind of down on Dallas. I don't like what Dallas has done this offseason. I get it. Dallas on paper is a better team right now than Chicago. But there's only 5 teams, maybe 4, that are without a doubt definitely better than Chicago entering this season in just the NFC. And once again, those teams are the Eagles. You know, okay, I'll say Dallas, Detroit, San Francisco, and the Rams. That's 5 teams right there. And if even you want to throw Atlanta because they got to win the division, that's 6. Why can't Chicago in year 1 compete for a wild card spot? I don't think that's crazy whatsoever. So I look at the Bears and I look around these divisions in football right now. Like the AFC East, there's intrigue with 3 teams. I guess the Pats now have intrigue because of Drake May, but I don't know if Drake May is going to play in year 1. You look at the AFC North, that's the best division from top to bottom in football. The AFC South improving in a big-time way. It's well-rounded now. The AFC West, it's the Chiefs and everybody else. I like Harbaugh, obviously, if you listen to the show. I like Herbert, but they got a lot of stuff to do in L.A. before they get moving in the right direction. NFC East, I think the Giants are going to be terrible. The Commanders, okay, there's intrigue with Jaden Daniels, but I think that team has a long ways to go. Eagles and Cowboys both have intrigue. Both should make the playoffs. But if you tell me Dallas missed the playoffs this year, I would not be surprised with all the drama that's brewing in Jerry's world. We talked about the North, the NFC South. It's like, all right, who's going to win the division? It should be Atlanta. And then the NFC West, I like San Francisco. I like the Rams. But after that, like, okay, the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, Marvin Harrison, they should be able to be an improved team. That was a gritty team last year with not a lot, but that roster's a long ways to go. And Seattle, does anyone truly believe that Geno Smith is going to be, firing all cylinders once again this year? I don't. I think that roster's good. I think that they have a lot of talent. They need another quarterback. But who knows what that transition is going to be like going from Pete Carroll to Mike McDonald. So this Bears team, and they're not your traditional number 1 overall pick because they traded into that spot a year prior. They were 7-10. You get a wide receiver who I think is a lock to be a stud in Roma Dunze. You added Keenan Allen. You got DJ Moore already there. You drafted the quarterback, which was enormous. That team, it's not asking much to get 2 more wins. Like, that's all I'm asking for. In year 1, can Caleb Williams get you 2 more wins than the previous regime? Go from 7 to 9. I don't see why he can't. And you see what Anthony Edwards is doing with the Minnesota Timberwolves. There's a certain mentality that a star has. I know that some people get caught up in Caleb Williams crying after a game or painting his nails, bleep Utah. But when he gets on the field, that dude has displayed a killer mentality. And he even said, like, his mentality is always to start, to be the best, and to win. And he plans on being the best in the NFL. Heck, few years ago when he was at the Heisman Trophy, there was a few people comparing him to Patrick Mahomes. He's like, there's nothing that Patrick Mahomes does on the field that I can't do. Now, he has to prove that, but we know that he has the confidence and he has that mentality, that dog mentality. So in year one, they should be a 9 or a 10-win team. And I know some people say, slow down. Oh, you're hyping up the Bears too. Why not? They have built this the right way. They have built putting the quarterback in a position to succeed and building the roster before getting the quarterback. And they've done that through trades. They've done that in free agency. And they've set themselves up rather nicely for Caleb Williams to hit the ground running in year one. Who are some other rookie quarterbacks, by the way, that could make the playoffs in year one? You go out to the guys that are in the first round. Caleb Williams, we just laid that out. Absolutely. Jaden Daniels, I can't see the Commanders making the playoffs this year. The Patriots' offensive roster is not good. Drake May's not making the playoffs, and they're in the AFC. Bo Nix in Denver, please. When James Palmer said the other day that offensive coordinators have told him he's a more athletic version of Derek Carr, I'm like, oh, they're basically doing what the Raiders did all these years ago. And what, they made the playoffs like 1 or 2 times with Derek Carr. Give me a break. So you go around, like McCarthy can't make the playoffs. And the Michael Penix Jr., the only way he's making the playoffs is as the backup or if Kirk Cousins gets hurt and he has to take over right away. So there's 2 quarterbacks that I go into that are going to be starters in year one that I could see making the playoffs out of the 6 that we're taking in the first 12 picks of the draft. And that's Caleb Williams and J.J. McCarthy. We'll take a time out on the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. It is a Monday. We got to do a little onside offside when we return. Update time first. Here's the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
And it's sponsored by Progressive Insurance. Looking for a career path with flexibility and great pay and benefits? Well, go to progressive.com/careers and apply online today. Travis Kelce is headed to Canton one day today. He's the highest paid tight end in football, agreeing to a new 2-year deal that will get him $34 million. The Jaguars, as expected, pick up the 5th-year options on Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne, while Ezekiel Elliott is heading back to Dallas, where it all began, coming to terms with the Cowboys on a 1-year deal. He was the 4th pick back in 2016 and a 3-time Pro Bowler in his 7 seasons in Big D, but rushed for only 642 yards and 3 touchdowns with the Patriots last year. The Seattle Kraken have fired their first and only head coach, Dave Haxtell, after 3 seasons on the job. The Celtics have a 2-1 lead over the Heat, with Game 4 coming tonight in Miami, while the Thunder go for the sweep of the Pelicans, and Denver hosts the Lakers after failing to complete the sweep on Saturday. I'm Rich Ackerman.
The Infinity Sports Network is on your smart speaker. All you have to say is, play Infinity Sports Network. That's it. Play Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. 3 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Zach's taking on the most polarizing issues in sports. Which side of the line of scrimmage will he end up on?
Offside. Defense number 69.
It's Onsides, Offsides with Zach Gelb.
And it's time to Ask the Pros, where you, the listener, get to ask us a question. It's brought to you by our friends at O'Reilly Auto Parts. Simply tweet your question at INF Sportsnet or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag Ask the Pros. Be listening later in the show when we might answer your question. You can think O'Reilly Auto Parts for your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. All righty, Samter, what do we got cooking today, my man?
Well, 6 quarterbacks went in the first 12 picks on Thursday, but we didn't see another QB go off the board until the 5th round when Spencer Rattler went to the Saints 150th overall. Now, according to Ian Rappaport, Rattler fell for a very interesting reason, in part because of how he behaved in a Netflix documentary.
This is kind of weird to say, honestly. Spencer Rattler did a reality show in high school. It's called QB1 Beyond the Lights. It did not make him look great. And it is unbelievable how many different teams mentioned to me the image of him in that show and how they can't get it out of their heads, which I think would be a public service announcement to all 17-year-olds. But it is fascinating as teams weigh whether or not to draft him.
So onside, offside, it is okay to judge Rattler based on his behavior from 5 years ago when he was 17.
Offside, and here's why. Like, you look back at all of us in high school, I don't think anyone was their best version of themselves then, but that doesn't mean that you can't do something that will damage a way that a job or an employer may look at you. But if you're an executive or you're a scout, you don't need this documentary that happened in high school as to why you shouldn't draft Spencer Rattler in the second or third round. He got benched at Oklahoma. And don't get me wrong, at South Carolina, in the 2 years there, at the end of the first season there, he had 2 good games, but it wasn't like he was sensational. I've never watched Spencer Rattler and said to myself, this is a guy that I need to draft in the first 3 rounds. I haven't. And I heard Schefter on with McAfee earlier this AM, and he was saying that 2 teams that really did like Spencer Rattler were the Falcons and the Broncos. The Falcons took a quarterback at 8 of Michael Penix Jr., and the Broncos took Bo Nix at 12, so that took them out of the Spencer Rattler running. I would have said before the draft, Spencer Rattler at earliest, probably a 4th-round pick. That's what I felt. I know some people started talking about the 2nd round. Some people talk about the 3rd. I think what Jalen Hurts did recently, and also Dak Prescott, where Jalen Hurts was 2 and Dak Prescott was 4, they try to find someone in those 2, 3, 4th rounds. But just because it's happened in previous years doesn't mean it's going to happen in future years. So, long answer, and I'll cut it shorter. It's okay to judge Rattler based on his behavior from 5 years ago. No, it's not. But that's not the reason why he had to wait so long to get drafted. So, offside.
Offside.
Man, could you imagine if the Falcons took him in the 4th or 5th round also?
That'd be
great.
great.
The Commanders or your Patriots taking 2 quarterbacks in the same draft. Now,
I did see a tweet,
yeah,
and it was something over the weekend. I forget who said it. Spencer Rattler is going to be a 2nd-round pick of the Atlanta Falcons. I thought that was a very well-worded and funny tweet.
The best tweet was the image of from Any Given Sunday.
Yes.
Of Kirk Cousins, right? Dennis Quaid and Jamie Foxx, Willie Beeman, and the aging quarterback. That was the best image I saw of the whole thing.
Yeah, it was pretty good.
Yeah. Now, while Rattler did go in the 5th round, we also saw Jordan Travis go to the Jets, Joe Milton to your Pats, Devin Leary to the Ravens, and Michael Pratt of Tulane go to the Packers. They all got drafted in later rounds, while undrafted QBs like Sam Hartman from Notre Dame, sorry Stu, went to the Commanders, Keaton Slovis went to the Colts, and Talia Tagovailoa is visiting with the Seahawks.
Keaton Slovis on like every team in college football.
I know, and he was like a 5-star recruit. He's supposed to be a superstar, just could never catch on. Yeah. Now, onside, offside, at least one of these QBs that I mentioned will become a legitimate NFL starter.
Out of all these quarterbacks you mentioned, I think Jordan Travis has the best chance, but I'm not optimistic in either of any of these guys that you mentioned. So at least one of these QBs will become a legitimate NFL. What do you mean by legitimate?
Like a Gardner Minshew style. It doesn't have to be like an all-pro, but like somebody who's going to start multiple games over multiple seasons.
No, offside.
Offside.
Now, after taking an offensive tackle with the 11th pick, the Jets moved up to give Aaron Rodgers a weapon in Perloff's favorite, Malachi Corley, out of Western Kentucky. Perloff was all over this guy.
And he was ranting and raving about this.
Now, after the pick, Rodgers tweeted the eyeball emoji to show approval for the pick. Now, onside,
that's
offside.
big. Oh, you need the Rodgers approval.
Now, listen, they got
Get
the
the
offensive
ayahuasca
tackle, they
going
got
in
the
the
wide
dark
receiver,
caves.
and then they drafted 2 running backs, which makes no sense.
Yeah.
But anyway, onside, offside,
Hey,
the
you
Jets.
know what's funny, Stu? This guy knows a lot about the Jets for someone that gave up on the Jets.
Yeah.
A lot about the Jets.
I also know a lot about the Chiefs draft as well. Onside, offside, the Jets will make the playoffs this year.
They should. I'll go on sides right now, but that's subject to change. I have not gone through right now, post-draft, the 7 teams that I have making the playoffs in the AFC. Buffalo, I like the draft pick of Keon Coleman. Miami, I am not the biggest fan of Tua. I think he's good. I don't think he'll ever be a great quarterback. The Jets have a really good roster. Defensively, we know that. Offensively, they have some names. Obviously, the line and it coming together and staying healthy still does concern me. That's why I like the tackle at Penn State, picking him and moving back a spot to do so. So you look at where they were, 7 wins from a year ago, 10 or 11 probably gets you in. Yeah, Rodgers should give you that swing. Well, they should make the playoffs. So I will go on sides, but subject to change when I do my big official reveal later in the summer on who's going to be the 14 playoff teams in the NFL.
Now, last week, Tom Brady joked, or maybe not, that he would consider returning to play quarterback if the right situation arose. Now, today, new Pats coach Gerard Mayo was on WEEI, the Greg Hill Show, and he was asked if they would be open to bringing Brady back.
Is the door open should the great one decide to put the cleats back on?
Look, I love Tom, and the door is always open if he wants to come in here and coach. But as far as going on the field, I don't know. But if he comes in here, once again, going back to the best player will play, you got to come here and compete. And he loves competition. So I doubt he's going to be walking through these doors anytime soon.
Yeah, I don't think he's up for training camp.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. He'll be one of those guys, like if something happens in November and we're in a good position, hey, come in. No, I'm good on that.
Sounds like Gerard Mayo doesn't want the GOAT back on the Pats.
Because it's
crazy.
a dumb conversation.
I mean, is it that
Why
dumb?
would Tom Brady want to go to New England? The roster sucks. And I say that as the biggest Tom Brady fan and also a huge fan of the Patriots. If he's going to play, it's going to be a place that he could actually win. You're not winning a Super Bowl with Tom Brady at this stage of his career in New England.
No, but if Tom Brady makes the decision like, hey, I want to return back home to my former team, how do you say no to the GOAT?
Very, very easy.
Makes no
Tom,
sense.
I love you. We're trying to build our next great quarterback. It doesn't do you any good. It doesn't do us any good. No.
Still Tom Brady. Now, onside, offside. So, I guess you're answering the question. The Pats would make the playoffs with Brady on the
That's
center.
a different conversation.
Yeah.
Make the playoffs? Onsides. They can make the playoffs because
then why not take him back?
But because you live in a world where you're a Jet fan, just making the playoffs is an accomplishment. No, you're a Jet fan. Just making the playoffs is an accomplishment. For my world, I lived in a world where it was 20 years Super Bowl or bust.
That world's over.
Yeah, I'm well aware. I'm the first one to say it. I don't just run and go jump on another team's bandwagon. And also, you're not allowed to embrace the Chiefs because you promised that you were going to get that fake tattoo, and you still haven't got that tattoo. So I am banning you from being able to root for the Chiefs until we see that tattoo. I'll get Mike Pennell on the line. He'll teach you a lesson or two. But anyway, the Pats could make the playoffs because the Pats had a garbage offensive roster when Brady was last there with Tennessee. When they lost that game in the wild card round to Tennessee, and they still made the playoffs. Or it was the wild card round because Fitzpatrick's bumped them out of the divisional round weekend. So they could still make the playoffs, but this roster is putrid on the offense side of the ball. But it's Brady, so yeah, they can make the playoffs on side.
Now, the number 3 seed in the West, Minnesota, swept the Suns, while the conference's number 1 seed, OKC, is 1 win away from sweeping the Pelicans. Obviously, the Thunder boast stars like Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and Chet Holmgren, while the T-Wolves have Karl Anthony Towns, Anthony Edwards, and Rudy Gobert. Onside, offside, OKC has a brighter future than the T-Wolves. Two very young teams with a lot of stars.
It's a great question. You could go either way. I'm going to take, though, the side of the Timberwolves. And it's nothing against Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. I love him. But Anthony Edwards has like a Jordan type of mentality. It is scary when you watch him play, that Jordan type of mentality that he has. Both teams' futures are extremely bright. But I will say that the Timberwolves have a brighter future. So OKC has a brighter future than the Timberwolves. I will go slightly offside.
Offside. Now, the Bucks over in the Eastern Conference are facing elimination after going down 3-1 to the Pacers. Since Doc Rivers took over Milwaukee, the Bucks are 18-22 and could be bounced in the first round for the second consecutive year.
Oh, that series though.
Onside, offside. This is a two-part question.
Mm-hmm.
Doc should be fired this offseason and never get another head coaching job again.
He should not get fired this offseason. Because when you bring him in like that and you give him a 4 or 5 year deal, I'm not blaming this all on Doc Rivers. But once this does not work out in Milwaukee, yeah, he should never get another head coaching job again. So since it's not a yes, it's a no yes, I will go offside. And here's why Doc shouldn't get fired. And trust me, I was not a fan of the hire. I did not think they should have fired Griffin when he was there. But Giannis didn't want him there, and then they hide behind a bunch of things, and he acted all surprised that Adrian Griffin was fired. Giannis isn't playing in this series. Dame is down with an injury. You got Bobby Portis ejected the other day. Don't get me wrong. This is a disaster of a season. Doc should have never got the job in the first place, but you brought him in. You don't move on from him after like a half season. That's just me.
I mean, I get it, but they were 30-13 with Adrian Griffin, and then Doc comes in and
they
just
didn't like the coach.
Sure, but like Doc just came in and derailed the ship. Like you may have like
I don't know
Adrian
if
Griffin.
I can say it. Don't get me wrong. I'm not a big fan of Doc anymore. I'm not blaming this all on Doc.
30-13 to 18-22.
Giannis is in a category just like LeBron and just like Kevin Durant in this day and age of the NBA. This is a player-driven league. I don't want to hear this nonsense that the season goes from not even great at the time to catastrophe because of the coach. Giannis wanted the coach out. He got Doc in. So now you have to deal with it for at least another season. But don't get me wrong here. It's not going to work. Everyone told you when they got hired that Doc was way past his prime as an NBA head coach. But it's amazing. The NBA and the NHL, once you get a job as a head coach and you have somewhat of success, and I know Doc won a championship at Boston, but you could stay in the league for 30, 40 years. It is crazy how much of a coaching whorehouse the NBA and the NHL becomes. Some of these guys have like 6, 7, 8 jobs. It's wild. It is absolutely wild. You know what? If I could go back and do life over again, I would just say, let me be a below average NBA coach, or let me be a below average hockey coach, because I can make millions and have like 6, 7, or 8 jobs. It's absolutely crazy. Did you see JJ Redick, who replaced Doc in the booth on ESPN? He's now a finalist, down to 2 with the Hornets. I'm happy if JJ Redick gets a job on the NBA sideline, because I do not like JJ Redick as an analyst. So pretentious. So pretentious. And can he crack a smile maybe once in a while? So please, Charlotte, take JJ Redick and make him the next head coach of the Hornets. We're coming on back. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, where we return 3 winners, 3 losers from the 7 rounds of the NFL Draft.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 2 minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Alrighty, how we doing? This is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Hour number 2 of our radio program. Charles Davis, CBS Sports NFL Draft, and also analysts all throughout the year is going to stop by. So we'll connect with Charles Davis an hour from now as we recap the 2024 NFL Draft. I'll give you 3 winners and 3 losers from the draft. Let's start on the positive, and then we'll wrap things up on the negative with the losers. Number 1, I got to give the Bears a big-time winner of the draft. Just because you get the number 1 overall pick doesn't always mean that you are a winner from the NFL draft. A lot of years, though, you can mess it up, or it turns out to be a bust, things like that down the road. But also the Bears complimenting Caleb Williams in a position they did not need to do so. Like, they could have gone defense. No defensive players are off the board at 9. But they said, let's take the best available player on the board in Rome Odunze. Because even though DJ Moore is there right now, and Keenan Allen's a little bit older, but he's there right now, you're going to need to get rid of one of those 2 guys eventually. And Rome Odunze, I think, could be the second best wide receiver in this draft class. And I said this last week, like, you gave me 3 guesses on 3 players that will be the best players in this draft class. I didn't even go quarterback. I went Marvin Harrison, I went Joe Alt, and then I went Rome Odunze. But to get that combination of Williams and Odunze, I said this earlier, I'll say it again, the Bears should be able to improve from a 7-win team a year ago to be a 9 or a 10-win team and make the playoffs in year number 1 with Caleb Williams, the signal caller. Now, I'm not going to break down the rest of the draft. They got an offensive lineman in the 3rd round. They got a punter in the 4th round. They got an edge rusher in the 5th round. I did find it funny, though, that I saw a report that Caleb Williams texted the punter, Torrey Taylor from Iowa, when he got drafted. He's like, don't be expected to punt much here. Be expected to just sit your ass on the bench all throughout the game. I like that mentality. I like that kind of text that one Caleb Williams did reportedly send to Torrey Taylor. All right, next winner from the draft. I think this is a team whose draft is flying under the radar. They haven't had a first-round pick in forever. Well, the wait was worth it because not only did they win a Super Bowl, but they were also able to get Jared Verse. And that's the LA Rams. And Jared Verse was a player that going into the year, he was one of those surefire lock, top 10, maybe even I saw it in some spots as high as a top 5 player in this draft. And Jared Verse was good this past year in Florida State, but I almost think the hype around Jared Verse got so big at Florida State where even when he was having good games, you'd be like, oh, you expected something better. But to get Jared Verse, and I know a defensive player didn't go to 15, but to get him at 19, I think is an absolute steal. And then the best moment from the draft was when Braden Fisk got drafted, also from Florida State, and you have Les Snead making the phone call to Braden Fisk, and Jared Verse is running into the facility as they're welcoming him in from the night before, and he was able to talk to his former teammate Braden Fisk at the end of the phone call, and it was a very emotional moment between the two. But the reason why that 1-2 punch is so big is we all know who the Rams lost this past offseason. They lost the production of Aaron Donald and one of the perfect careers that we've ever seen, or almost perfect careers that we've ever seen in the NFL in Aaron Donald. So you're going to have to find a way to replicate or find a way to replace that sack production that you lost, and to be able to get a great edge rusher in Jared Verse that the Rams made. Blake Corum going in the 3rd round. I know running backs, I didn't expect Blake to be, a second-round pick. But to get him in the 3rd round, 19th pick in the 3rd round, a championship player, the best running back in college football last year, has had a heck of a career. Could have won the Heisman if he didn't mess up his leg 2 years ago. To get Blake Corum there in the 3rd round, I think is another weapon that you just add to Sean McVay and what he has with the just incredible offensive roster that you have with Matthew Stafford still kicking it there. You got Puka Nacua, who was the steal of the draft a year ago. And then you still have who was the steal of the draft a year ago. And then you still have Cooper Kupp as well. So really like the Rams draft. And then my last winners from the draft, I'll give you 3 winners and 3 losers. I'm going to say it's the Patriots. And the reason why I'm going to say it's the Patriots, it's not because they're my favorite team. It's not because I'm definitely certain that the guys that they drafted are going to be studs. Like Drake May, there's a big discrepancy from the floor to the ceiling with him. Polk, I know his numbers aren't great from a testing standpoint, but he was a reliable wide receiver at Washington. But my biggest problem with the last regime towards the end in New England is they got Mac Jones, and they never put, even if you didn't believe in Mac Jones, they never put Mac Jones in a position to succeed. The offensive line has not been great the last few years in New England. You had no number one weapon to throw the football to, and you were shuffling in offensive coordinators, and for 1 year, it's a disgrace to the offensive coordinating position to even refer to Matt Patricia or Joe Judge as the de facto offensive coordinator. So the Patriots take a quarterback at 3 in Drake May, right, who people say he looks like Justin Herbert and he could be like Josh Allen, which I hope both those things end up being true. But after that, 2nd round, they go wide receiver. 3rd round, they go offensive tackle. 4th round, they go offensive guard. 4th round again, they go wide receiver. Now, we'll see if Polk and if Baker out of UCF was an electric personality, some of the quotes that he gave over the weekend, we'll see what they could turn out to be. And offensive linemen, right? The Patriots have a good history in drafting offensive linemen, but, Belichick is no longer there. They're at least going to put Drake May in a position to succeed. That's why I'm putting the Patriots as a winner from this NFL draft, because even though they weren't able to get Brandon Ayuk, even though they weren't able to get Deebo Samuel, they were trying to actively get one of those 2 guys. They tried to get Calvin Ridley this offseason too. So I still don't believe Drake May should really be playing much in year 1. I'm curious what Charles Davis is going to say about that when he joins us in about 50 minutes or so from now. But by next year, they got to find a way to get a bona fide number 1 wide receiver. But going after taking a quarterback, wide receiver, lineman, wide receiver, I like the approach from Elliott Wolf. And I was 50-50 on Elliott Wolf heading into this draft. I am not afraid to be critical of my football team. And I didn't like how they hired Gerard Mayo, and then they said, okay, we'll keep Elliott Wolf, and then we're going to have Elliott Wolf running the draft. I'm happy. This draft, the way I read it, this is not a Jonathan Kraft run draft, which that was a big concern of mine. So Elliott Wolf, I think, showed something this past weekend. And I'm not going to say I'm doing somersaults about the draft, but I do like the idea and the strategy behind the draft for the Patriots. Now, to my losers. San Francisco. I know that they have not traded Debo or Brandon Ayuk, but when you take a wide receiver 31st overall, I know Tennessee, when they said goodbye to A.J. Brown, they did it in the moment. They traded the first-round pick to, the Eagles to Tennessee. Eagles got A.J. Brown, and then you saw Treylon Burks get taken by Tennessee. But that Florida wide receiver, Ricky Pearsall, getting drafted at 31 overall, that just seems to me that the Niners are setting up the inevitable departure of either a Debo Samuel or a Brandon Ayuk. Ayuk's in the final year of his contract. I read today that Debo Samuel, he's not in the final year of his contract, but it's the last year of guaranteed money. I know they didn't pull the trigger on a deal at the draft. Teams were trying, right? There was numerous reports out there. But I do believe taking a wide receiver in the first round says, yeah, probably at some point in this offseason, one of those two guys will eventually get traded. We're just waiting for the right price. And maybe you run it back and you pay. Like, the more and more this goes on, it seems like the Niners are trying to rectify the situation with Ayuk, and they prefer Ayuk more long-term than Debo Samuel. And Ayuk, to me, he's the better wide receiver. Debo is the better all-around player. But you look for the next 3-4 years and the wear and tear and how much they use Debo Samuel and some of the injuries that he suffered, you wonder if there are some durability concerns, even though Debo is still young in this league. That's just the way that it feels, that if you tell the Niners it's one or the other, I think most fans say, oh, Debo over Ayuk, but I think the Niners are going to tell you it's going to be Ayuk over Debo. And Ayuk plays a big part in this. And he's not afraid to do the dirty work on social media as well and try to put some attention on him when he doesn't need the attention to be put on him. So I do believe, even though they did not trade either Ayuk or Debo at the draft, that it would not surprise me by the time the season gets underway that one of those two guys are off the roster, and that's just because of the draft pick that they took in the first round being a wide receiver. So I put the 49ers as a loser. The next team that I put as a loser, it's the Atlanta Falcons. I understand some of us have warmed up to the idea of Michael Penix Jr. being the 8th overall pick. And, hey, if he goes and has an 8 or 9 year career and plays some great football 2 years from now, then, yes, it will be worth it. But the Falcons, to me, where they lose me, is when you draft a player who's ready to play right now in Michael Penix Jr. at the quarterback position. And a few months before that, you signed Kirk Cousins to a 4-year deal. It's $100 million guaranteed. I think it's really a 2-year contract when you look at how you can move on from someone and maneuver around the dead cap and all that. And I hope we get Terry Fontenot on at some point this week. We'll see if we're trying to make that happen. The number one thing I want to ask him, and I'm sure he'll say no, because I do not anticipate him to say yes, but you have to ask the question. I want to ask him two things. When he fell in love, when did you fall in love with Michael Penix Jr.? When did you know he was going to be the pick? And if you knew he was going to be the pick, would you have still signed Kirk Cousins? Because even if he says yes, I don't believe it. Because it doesn't make sense to me to bring in Kirk and then you draft a ready-made player at that quarterback position and try to sell me that this is the Green Bay Packers model. Like, if they would have drafted a Jordan Love, if they would have drafted a Drake May, like guys when they got drafted who there were questions if they were ready to go to the NFL, okay. Even though when you're trying to win now, I would have gone with Rome Odunze at that pick. I would have taken a defensive player. I could at least warm up to it more than I have. But when you bring in Kirk and you're trying to say we're going to win now, and then you draft a ready quarterback who is older, that philosophy, that approach, I think ideally, like Arthur Blank told us at the Super Bowl, and he said on this show, they are trying to find the Packers model where you have an interim guy and then you have the long-term guy, and I could get that. But when the long-term guy turns 24 next week and he's ready to go this upcoming season, I don't like the approach that the Atlanta Falcons did take. Now, I will say, late in the draft, I did like the Falcons' pick of Jason McClellan out of Alabama running back. Now, they have a bunch of running backs as is, but I did think that was a savvy pick in the 6th round. Good value there for Atlanta. And then finally, it's Denver. Denver, I respect that Sean Payton identified who he loved, who he said he needed to get, quick passing, right? Try to do the Drew Brees kind of stuff. But out of everything that happened in the draft, and I get it, I would have never predicted Michael Penix Jr. going 8th overall to Atlanta. But Michael Penix Jr. to me was disrespected in this draft process. And if you would have told me after the Texas game where they won in the semifinal that he could be the 8th pick in the draft, I could have believed it. But if you would have told me when the college football season ended last year, and I get it, Bo Nix had a good season. He had a good last 2 years at Oregon. That he would have been the 12th pick of the draft, I would have never believed that. Never believed that. And I thought that was a reach, but the one position you will see teams reach on, obviously, is the quarterback position. But you talk about players going to a place where they could succeed. Caleb Williams going to a place he could succeed. J.J. McCarthy is going to a place that he could succeed in. Michael Penix Jr., right, the roster is good right now. He just may not play for 2 years. He could eventually succeed there. You know, the Commanders have a lot of work to do with Jaden Daniels in terms of the roster around him. I know they have Terry McLaurin. That's a big start. And I like Jahan Dotson too. The Patriots have a lot of work to do still with the weapons around them for Drake May. But I look at Bo Nix. What are you selling me on? All right, a better offensive line than what people think. But when Cortland Sutton's like your best weapon, nothing against Cortland Sutton. He's not a number 1 wide receiver. And I know they drafted his buddy Troy Franklin from Oregon, right? Did go in the 4th round, did fall in this draft. You draft a running back out of Notre Dame who I like, an Audric Estime. But this Denver team, Bo Nix is ready to play. But he's going to be put in a position where he's not going to succeed even with a good offensive-minded head coach in Sean Payton. 12th overall, Denver did not take quarterback this year. They could have waited a year from now. And they maybe could have got a defensive player. They have a lot of needs on that team. I did not like the selection of Bo Nix at 12. So those are 3 winners, 3 losers from the draft and the reasons why. Bears, Rams, Pats winners, Falcons, 49ers, and Broncos losers. 855-212-4227, 855-212-4227. Why Joel Embiid, who usually does get it in Philadelphia, doesn't get it anymore. And something that I've been saying from years is finally starting to get realized with Joel the Process Embiid. We'll talk Sixers when we return.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 3 minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Infinity Sports Network.
I am hungry right now. It is the Zach Gelb Show. Amy Lawrence, the host of After Hours right here on the Infinity Sports Network, she just posted a photo, and Amy is a very good baker. And she has brought some of those tasty treats into the office before. She just posted a photo. It says, "Island cookies and oatmeal caramel chewy bars for my students as they share their final projects in tonight's class at Syracuse." Man, those look like some really, really good desserts. If Amy needs anyone to taste those desserts, just let me know. I also went to a new place in the city this past weekend where Stu, Samter, and I think this could actually be the next Zach Gelb Show dinner. There's two places that I want to take you guys to. One, this is not the place I'm going to mention. It's Mark's off Madison, just because they supposedly have great lasagna. And I just want to have lasagna with Samter. But number two, I was supposed to go to Mark's off Madison yesterday. I'm in a wedding that I'm actually ordaining the wedding in the summer. And this is the day after my 30th birthday. One of my best friends getting married. So we had to go to, for the groomsmen, we had to go to like the suit fitting yesterday. And afterwards, the kid that's getting married, he was going to take us all out to lunch. So we're going to go to Mark's off Madison. We miscalculated, though, the time. that we thought it was going to take. So it ended up going a lot quicker than we thought, which was good. But it only took an hour for like 7 or 8 guys to get fitted for a suit, which was quite the pricey purchase, I will say. But we went to go walk to Mark's off Madison afterwards, and they're a very busy restaurant. We were an hour early, so like, oh, well, we can't take it until what your reservation is. So one of my buddies suggested to try this place, Mason Jar, in New York City. And I'm like, Mason Jar? Where the heck do I know this name, Mason Jar? And the night before, I was randomly scrolling on like social media. And I just kept on getting like barbecue after barbecue after barbecue. And Stu, after our experience in Kansas City getting barbecue from that one place, I'm like, oh, geez. I could go for some barbecue. I've had a good barbecue day. So I'm trying to think to myself, where have I heard this name, Mason Jar? Remember the listener, Billy, who took me to the Ranger game, who listened to the show, then invited me to go to the Ranger game. I went to the Ranger game with him. He told me that night, he goes, oh, one of my closest friends owns this bar called the Mason Jar in New York City. So I messaged Billy. I go, what was the name of the restaurant that you said your buddy owned? And he said, it's Mason Jar. They have maybe the best barbecue in the city. And it's a South Carolina bar, too. They had Spencer Rattler was there a few weeks ago. I texted Shane Beamer about this restaurant. He's like, yep, next time I'm in New York City, I'm going. Everyone tells me about this place, Mason Jar. I got jalapeno cornbread. I got mac and cheese, and it was on a brisket platter. So it was brisket was the main part of this. Delicious. And their wings, they make phenomenal Cajun wings. Their buffalo was good. They had like an Alabama white sauce, which was pretty solid as well. But I would say the Cajun was 1, the buffalo was 2, and the Alabama white sauce was in at 3. But I had a very, 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 very good meal yesterday at the Mason Jar. And guy was very nice. Gave me a T-shirt. I have like a Mason Jar T-shirt now with there was South Carolina Gamecock on it, but it was pretty cool. I never would have thought there was a South Carolina bar in New York City. Like Syracuse, Penn State, Michigan. Would have never thought South Carolina, but the owner of the bar was showing me like for South Carolina women's basketball games, football games. Like I will go there on a football. When South Carolina has a big football game this year, I will go to the Mason Jar. That's how good of a restaurant that place
That's like
was.
2 blocks from my house.
Have you
3
been?
blocks. I mean, a million times.
Really?
Yeah. It's a good spot. The barbecue I enjoy, but usually I'll just go there for like a drink and some games.
Yeah.
They do have good barbecue.
I watched the Knicks Sixers game there yesterday, and it was a very good place to watch a game. It's tough to get good barbecue in New York City when you actually have good barbecue, like when you've been to Kansas City, when you've been to Texas, like you've been to Memphis, like you go to some of the better barbecue spots around the country. It's once you get that fix, it's tough to replicate that in New York. And wings and barbecue, for whatever the reasons are in New York, they've done a crappy job ever since the pandemic, wings and barbecue. The fact that I have a place that could kill 2 birds with 1 stone, very, very, very happy. Drinks were good. Prices were fair. Food, scrumptious. Big fan. Anyway, I was watching this Knicks Sixers game there yesterday. And here's been my take the last few years on Joel Embiid. Joel Embiid is a great player. Joel Embiid has won an MVP. But Joel Embiid has escaped some blame where, like how I said Frank Vogel shouldn't be the number 1 person to blame for the Suns, Joel Embiid shouldn't be the number 1 person to blame for the Sixers the last few years. Because without Joel Embiid, that team would be lost. But there have been big moments in the playoffs when others have been blamed, and deservedly so, but it's exonerated Embiid from any blame. I was at a closeout game years ago in Boston. Joel Embiid had a crucial turnover in that Game 5 in TD Garden. The Hawks series that everyone talks about, Ben Simmons passing up that dunk, which was stupid. Joel Embiid had a costly turnover in that game. Like, there have been moments in the playoffs where Embiid is either injured or not in shape, and as the series goes on, he slows down, and Joel Embiid does not close out these games. And I get it. The eye injury right now is terrible. He probably is at best 50%, and he still puts up some of these great performances. But look at last year. Like last year up against the Celtics, I'll never forget. I want to say that was Father's Day. No, because maybe it was Mother's Day. Yeah, it was probably Mother's Day. It was like this time last year where we were supposed to go out for dinner, and it was that Game 7 Celtics and Sixers. And I said to my dad, as my parents were downsizing to a new place, so they were living somewhere around here. And I said, I'll come over, we'll watch the Celtics and the Sixers game, and then we'll go out to eat afterwards. At halftime, and it was like a close game, like 4 or 5 point game at halftime, I turned to my dad and said, I'm throwing a fat bet down on whatever the money line is, or whatever the spread is for the Celtics. My dad looks at me, he goes, how can you be that confident? I go, I've seen this story numerous times before. James Harden already played his best game of the series. Joel Embiid looks like he's out of breath. And you are going to see the Celtics just run the Sixers off the court. And at the end of the third quarter, my dad said to me, can we push up the dinner reservation? Because that game was over. So throughout the years, Embiid isn't the biggest issue. But as the series go on, or as you see the series play out, Embiid does not carry the team. And trust me, Ben Simmons was a terrible running mate. James Harden was a bad running mate. They have made some really bad decisions in Philadelphia. And I understand Joel Embiid is playing in an immense amount of pain. But Joel Embiid was a complete and utter no-show in the fourth quarter yesterday and in most of these fourth quarters throughout the entirety of this series. And for Joel Embiid, and I think, like, there's some moments where afterwards a player speaks and he says the wrong thing, but it's not something that everyone freaks out about. I thought yesterday there were 2 moments from Embiid and then also going to Kevin Durant where it was just like, I can't believe they're saying that. Right after the Suns lose, there's a piece in The Athletic slamming Vogel and how saying Kevin Durant never felt comfortable in his role in the offense. And anytime Kevin Durant was asked something yesterday, he just said there's context to everything. And he goes, I can't get into context because then it's made as it's being viewed as an excuse. And that tells me that Kevin Durant was about to throw a lot of people under the bus, but he didn't do so. So you didn't get everything being told to you, but it creates a lot of ambiguity. What Joel Embiid did yesterday was so dumb because, yes, it is stunning that a proud city like Philadelphia allows Knicks fans, and it's not a long drive down the turnpike to go to the game, but the Knicks fan took over that stadium yesterday. I'm watching that game at the Mason Jar. They got the sound on, and I thought that was a Knicks home game. The Sixers would miss shots. The Knicks fan would cheer. You heard go New York, go New York, go all throughout the game. Jalen Brunson was pounding the Sixers, and the crowd was just getting louder and louder and louder. And then walking out of that stadium in Philadelphia, where you would think if this happened, someone would get killed over it. They're screaming, bleep Embiid, bleep Embiid, bleep Embiid. I've never seen, and I lived in Philadelphia for 7 years. I understand that city better than most. I've never seen an opposing fan base walk in a playoff game. In a playoff game and take over a building like the Knicks fan did yesterday. So I understand Embiid is frustrated by that. But 9.9 times out of 10, when you take a shot at the fan or you criticize the fan, it does not work out well for you. Especially when your team is down 3-1. You're down 3-1 in the series. Embiid should have shut his mouth yesterday when talking about the fans. But here is Joel Embiid commenting on the large amount of Knicks fans that were in Philadelphia recently.
Disappointing. I love our fans. Think it's unfortunate. And I'm not calling them out, but it is disappointing. Obviously, you got a lot of Knicks fans, and they're down the road and never seen it. And I've been here for 10 years. Kind of pisses me off, especially because Philly is considered a sports town. So, they've always shown up, and I don't think that should happen.
He did the whole, I love my fans, and I'm not going after the fans, but then you did go after the fans. And trust me, I'm shocked, even with how great the Knicks fan can be, that the Knicks fan made Philadelphia a home environment for them. But with that being said, even though Embiid's going through a bunch of injuries, when it's the same old story, you can't be attacking the fan there. And you know what that tells me? That this Sixer fan knows the championship window is shut in Philadelphia and that this group had no chance to win a championship. And I think they probably realized that after the Hawks series when they lost to Atlanta a few years ago. Because last year, I get it, Harden had a teasing effort, right? He had 2 good games in the series, but they didn't beat the Celtics. And unfortunately, Embiid keeps on getting hurt, keeps on not being able to last in these series in the playoffs. And even though Maxey is on the rise, and I think Tyrese Maxey is going to be a heck of a player, I don't think Maxey is going to be at his best when Embiid's at his best. I just don't. And I think they're moving in a different direction. And you would hope that they'd be able to both be elite at the same time. And Embiid, he's still elite right now, but you got to deal with a bunch of injuries, and you got to just look at it and call it what it is in the postseason. This guy, when he needs to step up and maybe save a series or win a series, he does not have these great performances. And I've seen it in person in Boston multiple times. I've seen it up against the Hawks, right? We have now had a large sample size where it's, oh, you could blame Ben. Oh, you could blame James Harden. I get that. And a lot of those times, those people got blamed in front of Embiid, and it was right. And I know the Sixers are in a bad spot where they'd be without Joel Embiid. But there's no dancing around this one, because it's not like the Knicks were sensational yesterday. That was a putrid. There were stretches in the final 5 minutes where no one was hitting a shot. But in game 2, when the Sixers complained about the refs, the Knicks found a way to Hardenstein to out-hustle the Sixers and get a rebound. And yesterday, that was just a defensive clinic, and that was the Knicks out-hustling the Sixers. Be one thing if just one team was better than the other. And the Knicks are better than the Sixers. But to lose because your team doesn't have the right hustle level, that's disgraceful. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We'll take a time out. We'll come on back. We'll update you on some of the biggest stories in the world of sports with some audio. We call that segment the News Brief. But first up, with the latest sports flash, here is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
Well, Travis Kelce is coming off his 3rd Super Bowl victory and agrees to a 2-year extension with the Chiefs that makes him the highest paid tight end in the NFL. It is worth a total of $34 million. Kelce's brother, Jason, who recently retired, is joining ESPN as an analyst on Monday Night Football in the pregame show. Ezekiel Elliott is back in Dallas after spending his first 7 seasons with the Cowboys. He played last year in New England and had just 642 yards rushing last year. He is back on a 1-year deal. The Jaguars, as expected, pick up the 5th-year options on Trevor Lawrence and Travis Etienne. 3 first-round playoff series in the NBA are on the schedule for tonight. 2 of them can come to an end with the Thunder going for a sweep of the Pelicans in New Orleans, while Denver will host the Lakers up 3-1. The night starts in Miami with the Heat looking to even things up with the Celtics at 2 as Boston took the series lead with a Game 3 victory. The Orioles host the Yankees in a meeting of the top 2 teams in the AL East, with the Yanks holding a 1-game lead. The Braves, with baseball's best record at 19-7, go for win number 20 tonight in Seattle. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on X. Our handle is INF Sports Network. That's INF Sports Network on X.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. 4 minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Time for your daily news brief. We get you caught up on the rumors, reports, and reconnaissance from the day in sports.
Alrighty, news brief time. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Let's start with the Colts GM, Chris Ballard. I guess this is turning into a yearly tradition where he takes someone that may have character concerns, or it's reported they have character concerns, and he eviscerates those concerns, and he wants people to put their names on it. Here is him ranting about reports regarding concerns about Adonai Mitchell who they drafted.
I read some of the that was said on TV. I mean, just a typical, excuse my language, our typical league. Unnamed sources, bad interview. That's such. It's put your name on it. I'm tired of, we tear these young men down. These are 21, 22 young men. And if people out there can tell me they're perfect in their lives, it's crap. It's crap. This is a good kid. And, for those reports to come out, like, I said it last year. It's I'm sorry. I apologize for the language. I don't, but I do.
That's amazing. Now, I heard that over the weekend, and I'm like, what is so crazy about some of the reporting about Adonai Mitchell? And clearly there was things said that he was ticked off about. I Googled it. I searched it. I tried to find it. I know he was falling a little bit, but I didn't see anything that was that damaging being said about him. So I would love to get Chris Ballard on and just be like, what in particular, like, who are you referencing? What was exactly said that you saw that set you off? Now, here was a good that was a good Chris Ballard moment, but here's another, I guess, good feeling moment with Chris Ballard, but there's no negativity here. Here is Chris Ballard calling a 7th-round pick, Jonah Lalu, a defensive lineman, and Jonah thought he was getting pranked by the Colts.
Jonah.
Hey, how you doing?
Chris Ballard with the Colts. Welcome to Indy, man. We're drafting you right here.
That's not a prank call, lady.
It's not a prank call, I promise.
Hey, Cole, it's been a stressful day.
I know, and everybody's probably recruiting the crap out of you right now, aren't they?
Yeah, you ain't lying.
No, you can go tell them to kiss your ass. You coming to Indy.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much.
I have a confession to make. For years, I hated the Indianapolis Colts because I'm a Brady guy, the Brady-Manning rivalry and all that stuff. I'm starting to like the Indianapolis Colts. Not that I'm going to be sitting there saying, go Colts, because I'll never say that outside of the fact that I just said it. But you have Shane Steichen. You have Chris Ballard. They drafted Anthony Richardson. It's just like, they're a team to me that I don't think they'll ever win a Super Bowl again, like with this regime. But they're building something that could be like a 10 or 11 win team. Like last year, they should have no business being in a spot where they could have almost made the playoffs. And if Shane Steichen just would have put Jonathan Taylor on the field, they'd probably make the playoffs. That's a team that I'm just monitoring. And when Chris Ballard just teeing off on the media or teeing off and having fun with the draft pick when he thinks he's getting pranked, it's one of those moments where I'm like, okay, I could have a little bit of a fuzzy feeling, let's just say, about the Indianapolis Colts. Let's listen to C.J. Stroud and Micah Parsons on Bleacher Report Live. They got into it on a little conversation about who has the best division in football right now.
NFC South, I think we're going up there with AFC North on the best division of football.
Some would argue that's the NFC East.
On paper, last year, we were argued the best division of football.
No, sir.
Everyone was a playoff team. AFC North was the best division in football. Washington was argued that Washington was in nothing, bro. What are you talking about?
That meant the Giants.
The Giants either. What are you talking about?
What do you mean? They lost to the Eagles. That's 2 years ago.
Yeah, but I'm saying going into it, fam, you don't know what you're talking about. Going into last year, no
NFC
one
North
in the
was
planet,
argued.
except for Micah Parsons, thought the NFC East was better than the AFC North. You can't argue that. I can, bro, unless you're delusional. We have better teams than y'all right now. Going into last year, you thought Washington was going to be good. There's not a weak team in the AFC North. What are you talking about? Baltimore, Cincinnati, Cleveland. On paper, Washington was supposed to be a really great team. Washington is not better than any one of those four teams, I guarantee you. That's why Daniel Jones got the contract. They went to a playoff game. And then they added Darren Waller. The Ravens, the Browns. Then they added Darren Waller. Going into that season, they had the Giants. We were ranked third or fourth best team in the NFC. You guys always are. We were ranked third going into preseason. You guys. That's not the conversation. You're trying to single it out for y'all. No.
I could say this from personal experience, interviewing Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is not good at arguing. He says things, he just keeps on repeating them. Like when he told us TJ Watt is in a top 5 pure pass rusher in the NFL, that's maybe one of the dumbest things I've ever had someone tell me in an interview. Like there's no justification for it. You don't want to say he's number 1, okay. You don't want to say he's number 2, okay. But to say he's not top 5, that's crazy. And then to make it out that the NFC East is better than the AFC North, but they were clearly talking about this upcoming year, and then he's trying to talk about like last year going into the season. Everyone knows the AFC North on paper from top to bottom is the best division in football. It's the best division in football. You have the Bengals, you have the Ravens, even the Steelers, they're starting to come together. And the Cleveland Browns have a really damn good team. The NFC East, the Giants are going to be terrible this year. The Commanders are probably going to be bad. The Cowboys are going to take a step back, and the Eagles probably win the division. Man, Micah Parsons is not good at arguing. Let's go to Raheem Morris, the impact that the Penix pick has on Kirk Cousins.
We came up with a decision. This is what we plan to do. And Kirk does not have to look over his shoulder every time he throws a bad pass. Like, that is not the case. That is not the case. Like, we are here to go win, and we're here to go win it all. We are here to win as much as we can win, right? And we set these goals as a team, and we want to follow through on those goals, right? We had an opportunity to build and do something different with some sustained winning over time, and we took an op, and then right back to business to doing what we need to do to try to win right now. I hate for it to be like the story of the draft. I know it will be, but I can't say it's annoying, no, because it's what people want to see is pique more interest. I feel like, what's Kelsey's girlfriend name? I feel like her right now.
No,
just based off, I'm Taylor Swift right now, and Terry's Kelsey, I guess. I mean, we're making this thing popular, man. I don't know what that is, man.
What are we doing? He's tired, guys. He's getting tired. We should probably wrap this up.
You're trying to tell me that there's not an issue, and then you ramble like that for 45 seconds, Raheem Morris, and you use Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift? Huh? Could you imagine if they actually did hire Belichick, and Terry Fontenot walked up to Belichick and be like, we're drafting Michael Penix after we just gave $100 million guaranteed to Kirk Cousins? Oh, boy. Man, that was not a good look for Raheem Morris. Let's listen up to Mike Tomlin. He was on Good Morning Football on the NFL Network, and he was asked about Russell Wilson, Justin Fields, and Arthur Smith.
You guys have a new offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith, but also two new quarterbacks in the room, Russell Wilson and Justin Fields. How's it going so far between the three of them?
It's going really well. All three guys, to be really transparent, are somewhat scalded. They got something to prove professionally, but we as a collective feel the same way. We have something to prove, and I just think that is a good frame of mind to be in as individuals and as a collective as we prepare ourselves for the 2024 season. It's not fun to relocate or get fired or things of that nature. But as competitors, man, it always motivates us in the right way. And we as a collective got some questions to answer. So I'm excited about that as well.
See, like when Belichick says nothing, he literally says nothing. Mike Tomlin says nothing, but he'll give you a 45-second soundbite. There was nothing in there. Outside of these guys are just proving things. Or they're in a situation where they feel like they need to prove something. I will say, though, Brian McFadden, friend of the show, former Steeler corner, two-time Super Bowl champion, said, ooh, Omar is working. Talk about Omar Khan, the GM. The Steelers are very close to landing a significant playmaker. Hashtag, here we go. Hashtag, stay tuned. So we'll see. Maybe that's a deal with the San Francisco 49ers, has been speculated. Is this right? J.J. McCarthy, the new quarterback of the Minnesota Vikings, he rejected a call from the great one, Wayne Gretzky, during his press conference? Let me hear.
You willing to, oh, wow, that's Wayne Gretzky. I'm sorry about that. Hockey guy one-on-one and going to the hockey state.
I was not expecting to ask you how you know Wayne Gretzky, but yeah, I'll ask that to start.
Wayne actually, he's really good friends with my off-the-field marketing agent, Ira Stahlberger, and he hit me up on FaceTime right after the national championship, January 9th. And, just being able to sit there and be just a witness to the greatness that is, spreading his appreciation to what I was able to do and what I was able to represent. It meant so much because obviously growing up, he was one of my GOATs and on Mount Rushmore. And I, give so much credit to him because he inspired me so much.
That's awesome. Crazy story and the connection with everything, but when you're in the sports world and that circles, right? Things like that are bound to happen, but kind of nuts.
I mean, if you were doing a press conference, if you were doing an interview,
I'm picking up.
And Wayne Gretzky calls, you just tell everyone to hold on a second.
I'm at least picking up and saying, to make myself look a bit cooler, hey, Wayne. I love how you call him Wayne, too. hey, Wayne, let me call you back. I'm doing a little press conference here, okay? I'll call you back. That's what I would have done. Finally, here is Kevin Durant. He was asked if he's still motivated to play basketball.
I live and breathe this bro. Like, I have nothing else but, like, you know, at this point in my life, I got a lot of going on outside of basketball, but what I'm mainly focused on is ball, bro. So, like, yeah, I got motivation. I love to play. I'm going to come back next year, you know, ready to hoop, you know. So, yeah, I don't think you should question that.
All righty. What else did I expect him to say? He's ready to hoop. Doesn't mean he's going to hoop himself to another championship, because when he's driving the buses, Charles Barkley said, you could guarantee that Kevin Durant ain't going to win another championship. I did see Barkley over the weekend. He was trashing the NBA. I love when he goes on the NHL shows and trashes the NBA, and he guaranteed that the Maple Leafs were going to tie up that series with the Bruins. So I was sitting there on my couch, had nothing to do. I was like, oh, okay, I'll ride Chuck. I'll ride the Chuckster. I'll get on the Chuck bus, throw some money down on the Maple Leafs, and woof, another year, another wrong Charles Barkley guarantee, another season where the Maple Leafs continue to disappoint. This is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We recap the NFL draft with one of the best, Charles Davis. Next.
You're in a 5-minute break. Four minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. 1 minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
To infinity and beyond.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show. Here's your host, Zach Gelb.
It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network, hour number 3 of our radio program. We got to recap the 2024 NFL Draft. We'll bring in a man that does a great job as an analyst for the NFL Network and also CBS Sports. And I see him rocking that Augusta pullover right now. Have you been to the Masters, Charles Davis? I wasn't anticipating that being my first question, but I see it out of the corner of my eye, so I'm now distracted and I have to ask you that.
Hey, Zach, how you doing? It's good to see you and hear you again. And I've been lucky enough to go twice to practice days. The last 2 years, as a matter of fact, I was able to hit the bucket list and then fill the bucket a little bit more, both Wednesdays beforehand. And it's probably the one event that can't be oversold. You know, everybody tells you this, then you go and you go, it wasn't quite that. This is the one that I don't think can be oversold. Everything anyone has ever told me, I was like, yeah, they were right, and then some. So I was fortunate enough to be able to do it.
That's awesome. Charles Davis here with us on the Zach Gelb Show. Let me start you off with the Bears. Epic first round, right? We all knew they were getting Caleb Williams, and then at 9, they're able to get Rome Odunze. The Bears last year were 7-10. I look at this team and I say, why can't they be 9-8? Why can't they be 10-7 this year and make the playoffs year 1 with Caleb Williams? What do you say to that?
I don't disagree with you, but I was thinking that headed into the whole thing. I was thinking that with Justin Fields, to be frank with you. Not that I thought that getting rid of Justin Fields and draft Caleb was a bad move. Organizationally, they had to decide who their person was. We know that. And it's hard not to buy into what you see with Caleb Williams as your true upside. Because the one thing we had with the biggest question mark we had about Justin Fields coming in was, how accurate would he be throwing the football? And percentages in college does not mean accuracy in the pros. Because in college, your receivers are usually a lot better than the DBs are going against for whatever reason. Your main guys are pro guys playing college kids, and that's all they're going to be, like someone like me. I was a 4-year starter at Tennessee, but I wasn't an NFL player. So the separation kicks in, those guys make plays for you, and you're a 67% thrower, but you're not accurate, meaning, is the ball in the right spot? Do you stop the receiver before he hits the post safety? Do you pick him low so he doesn't have to take the big shot? Do you hit the swing and he keeps running? You see where I'm going with all that, Zach? Caleb Williams, that stuff he's done throughout his time at USC. But everything that was waiting for him, this is the unusual part for a quarterback taking it number 1, Zach. that a tight end in Cole Kmet is waiting for him. Receivers named DJ Moore, Keenan Allen were waiting for him. Running back named DeAndre Swift was waiting for him. First round right tackle last year, Darnell Wright, waiting for him. You see where I'm going? These people were there, and now they've increased it, bringing in Caleb and Roma Dunze. You know, Agajide, the tackle from Yale, Project City, 2 years at Yale, he didn't play a heck of a lot. COVID was one of them, injuries this past year. Potential, sure. But what you see right now with that offense is kind of what you get. And that's not so bad. And the defense last year, about the last half of the year, was as good as they could imagine, and picking up Montez Sweat. So now you've got potential playmakers on the defensive side at defensive line with Sweat. The linebackers, I love TJ Edwards. Quietly does his job very, very well, right? Terrell Edmonds, not Terrell, but
Tremaine.
what is it? Tremaine, thank you, brother. I should know their father, Farrell, beat me for a touchdown in the Sun Bowl in college. I'm still trying to get over it. They are playmakers at linebacker. And then the secondary, Jalen Johnson at the corner, Jawan Brisker at safety, and Matt Eberflus coordinating everything as a head coach. I liked where this team was headed, and I'm with you. They are in a position where they can, they can butt their way in if they play well. The kicker was, I'm not sure they saw Green Bay getting right as well as they did the last half of last year, too. I don't know that anyone did. And now Green Bay is still looming out there. And, of course, Detroit runs the division right now.
And that division's really good because I was waiting to see what quarterback Minnesota was going to get. And I wasn't sold on J.J. McCarthy going into the draft, but I kept on saying McCarthy goes to the Vikings. That's a landing spot where he could succeed right away.
And you're saying, let me ask you this, Zach. Are you saying that because of Kevin O'Connell? Or are you saying it because Justin Jefferson and Addison?
All the above. That's what I'm
All
saying. You
Yeah.
have a good offensive-minded head coach. You got those two weapons. You got Aaron Jones in the backfield. Hawkinson, I know he's coming off an injury at tight end, and a guy that knows how to win, and he plays his role, and he's not about ego. I think it's a match really made for one another with McCarthy and the Vikings.
And good building blocks in the offensive line. Brian O'Neill's still your right tackle. Bradbury's an experienced center, et cetera. It's Christian Darrisaw at left tackle. But for me, it's Kevin O'Connell. Because I thought that his chops as a head coach were really made, right? What do they say? He made his bones last year to me. Not the 13-4 rookie season, because, Zach, you've seen teams get on a run, okay? We've had coaches win Super Bowls that have never been heard from since. Okay, so it happens, right? You get on a great run, you go. But I thought last year, when I thought Minnesota was primed to take a pretty decent step back, you're not going to win 9 one-score games in a season back-to-back years. And they didn't take as far a step back as I thought they would, especially using 4 quarterbacks because of Kevin O'Connell. I'm a huge believer in him as a head coach, not just as a quarterback creator, which he is, but as a head coach. Pulling all that together, and Brian Flores doing the job on defense, but the credit has to go to the man out front who held all that together. And I'll be darned, Zach, how was Minnesota in contention as deep in the season as they were? They shouldn't have been. There was no rhyme or reason for that. But they hung in, they battled, they fought, and I give Kevin O'Connell a ton of credit for that.
Charles Davis is my guest right now. 4 days later, where are you at on the Michael Penix Jr. pick?
I'm really wanting Atlanta to be able to yah-yah at all of us down the road that it worked out exactly as what sounds like is their vision, which is owner Arthur Blank, I want a quarterback succession, that Kirk Cousins comes in and makes him the playoff team we expect him to, right, as a starting quarterback. And then 2-3 years down the road, Michael Penix takes over a perennial playoff team, and the transition is nice and easy. I want all that to happen. I want that to come true. I want that to be right for Atlanta, because right in front of them is, yes, a playoff team because Cousins has come to town. Because last year, Zach, they were deeply disappointed they didn't make it, and they thought it was mainly because of quarterback play, and that was the reason Arthur Smith got bounced as the head coach. Well, you added the quarterback, $100 million guaranteed. You still have Drake London. You still have Kyle Pitts. You've got an offensive line with Lindstrom and Matthews and Caleb McGarry. You've got the makings of it. Oh, yeah, that's right. Bijan Robinson, and we're going to play positionless football. here's someone else to coordinate it all. Zach Robinson's new coordinator, Raheem Moore's the head coach. I like where they're going. But if you're saying, what about adding some other pieces, glaring need at rush end, the edge rusher.
And no defensive players were taken yet up until that point, too.
They had their first bite of the apple, whether they wanted to go corner, edge rusher. No one was taking a linebacker, but they could have done that. Safety. You know what I'm saying.
Or they could have loaded up on offense, and they could have taken a Dunze, too.
They could have done all that. They could have done any way they wanted to go, but they chose quarterback. So I'm hoping that down the road they're able to look at us and go, well, you guys, you just missed the whole thing. We did the playoffs and had our runs with Cousin. He left. He took over a team and made them a playoff team. Here comes Penix with the idea to make a playoff team now. That's what it sounds like is the plan. I would have tried to beef up the rest of the team myself under Cousins and worried about that quarterback spot later. But this was an owner-driven deal from every indicator down to Terry Fontenot, the GM, and he made it happen. And I'm really, really hoping that Atlanta has the last laugh.
And the thing that doesn't make sense to me is I could get more on board with this. There's nothing against Michael Penix Jr. If he was raw, if he wasn't NFL ready, if he was a little bit younger. He turns 24 in a few weeks. He's ready to go right away. It seems just ridiculous to make him sit and wait probably 2 years and pay all that money to Kirk Cousins, where if you really love the guy, just take him at 8, and you should have never brought Kirk in to begin with.
Well, the other part, Zach, is this, and this is just my own personal theory about things. When you draft quarterbacks in the first round, let alone in the top 10, it's really hard for them not to get on the field. It's really hard for you to sit them. And I know everybody will come running right to me. Mahomes had his first year. That was Kansas City's plan from the word go. They had Alex Smith, and they were a perennial playoff team. Let's see, who else can you throw at me? Oh, that's right. Carson Palmer's had his first year with John Kitna. Okay, Cincinnati had a plan there, and they weren't that great at that time. They
Jordan
were trying
Love.
to beat the team. Jordan Love had to sit a long time because Rodgers was in his prime.
Yep.
Rodgers had to sit a long time because Favre was in his prime. But overall, how many times, Zach, have you seen a GM or an owner go to the podium and say, hey, our plan is to essentially redshirt him. We want to give him time. And game 3, he's the starting quarterback. It is really difficult. If you worship celebrate Christmas, you celebrate Hanukkah, you celebrate Kwanzaa. I don't care what you celebrate. When it's time to open the gifts, do you defer them for a year?
Heck no.
You don't. You open, everybody tears paper and off you go, right? If that team drafts a quarterback in the top 10, at some point, the person who signs the checks is going to get antsy, and they're going to want to do it. Heck, Kurt Warner, who's in the Hall of Fame now,
with Eli,
had to sit down with a winning record to make sure Eli Manning got on the field. It's going to happen. So I don't know when, where, why, but it's $100 million guaranteed Kirk Cousins is going to have. We'll see how this all plays out with Atlanta.
So you think Michael Penix Jr. will at least start one game this year for the Falcons, it sounds like?
I don't know if it's this year. Maybe they can hold him off for a year, but it's not long. And we're taking injury out of it, Zach.
Sure.
Let's take injury out of it. We're just talking about how it goes.
But that's the thing. Cousins coming off the Achilles. We know physically if you're fine. Mentally, you start thinking about other things. You could go through a 2 or 3 bad game stretch, and you know what the fans are then going to be saying? Get this guy Cousins out and get the 8th overall pick on the field.
And the flip side is you're hoping you're motivating it. Aaron Rodgers hated the fact Jordan Love got picked, but he went on and won back-to-back MVPs. So you're hoping that part kicks in as well. But here's the other part. What if they lose 3 heartbreakers early and they start off the season 2-4?
Oh, that'd be a mess. And it's possible.
And by the way, who are we kidding? Matt Ryan, my esteemed colleague at CBS, congratulations to him now going into the studio and what a career he's had. He won an MVP, took a team to a Super Bowl. Zach, you've been around the scene a long time. Matt Ryan played his entire career in Atlanta, looking in the stands and seeing more number 7 jerseys than he saw number 2 jerseys. People never quit Michael Vick. Here comes another left-handed black quarterback to Atlanta. Look out. That's all I'm saying. That city, they're going to be fired up about Michael Penix now. And rightly so. He's a heck of a player, but he looks a lot closer to what they've been pining for than a guy that they had who may very well go into the Hall of Fame.
Will Bo Nix with Sean Payton, will that eventually be something successful? Because I could have never seen Bo Nix going with the 12th overall pick.
Yeah, I put him in my final mock in the 12th overall. I actually had him in my first mock in the 12th overall for the very reason you just mentioned. It's because of Sean Payton. If you've met Sean Payton, you've been around Sean Payton, you've watched Sean Payton, you've heard him on TV, you've heard him coaching, you've heard him whatever. No one has a better belief in self than Sean Payton about making players better. And it's been proven over time that it works pretty darn well. So I know that when he got Brees, it wasn't like Drew Brees played poorly in San Diego with the Chargers. He had a bad injury and didn't get cleared, but he got together with Peyton, and boy, it was that a perfect match for both of them. It worked. You get a guy with the talent, a guy like Peyton coaching them. Look, what other team in the league was going to make a move to pick up Zach Wilson? Sean Payton's like, I'll fix him. You guys didn't know what you were doing. I'll fix him. But here comes Bo Nix, who kind of plays like Drew Brees a little, kind of moves like Drew Brees a little, kind of does all those things. And Sean Payton believes he can build around him. That made sense at 12 because of Sean Payton. In no other world does it make sense to take him at 12.
Let me ask you this, Charles Davis. A lot of people, I know what you just said about Michael Penix Jr. maybe get on the field sooner than what people think. A lot of people believe that Drake May should sit almost the entirety of this season. When you get into how NFL ready Drake May is, what's the truth on that with your background?
Yeah, the truth is everyone's probably right. He's a 2-year starter at North Carolina, redshirt sophomore, and it'd be nice for him to have some time to get some habits broken and some other things that he had to break to try and win football games at North Carolina. I was okay with his habits going crazy because he was trying to find a way to rally his team. Offensive line leaked a little bit on him. Receivers weren't quite as good as the year before. It sounds a lot like Sam Howell's last year at North Carolina. All right? So he had to make more plays with his movement, with his running, making bigger throws than maybe he was supposed to make at the time, trying to fit one in there to try and give him an advantage. Because in a lot of ways, he and Caleb Williams played similar ball last year at USC. It's almost like if they didn't go out there and put 6 on the board, it was like a 12-point swing, right? Or 14 if you want to add the extra points. Because defense might very well give that up, and now you're deeper in the hole. So there's more pressure on doing it. I'll put it to you this way, though. He was taking number 3. Okay, so if my theory holds up, Jacoby Brissett will take the snaps to begin this season, but at a certain point, they're going to be out of the playoff race. All right, unless this roster dramatically changes between now and the season, Zach, this team is not going to the playoffs this year. All right, so at a certain point, they're out of the playoff race. Are you going to keep sitting him, or are you going to try and give him some snaps to get him ready for the next season?
They're going to end up playing him.
You know the answer to that.
You're 100% right.
And you know your safest place to look for it. Find out when the open date comes, when the schedule comes.
Bye week.
Your open date, and if that open date is somewhere from week 7 on, look for that open date for the quarterback change. Now, if they have one of the early open dates, makes it a little dicier. But at the same time, he's going to play. I said it on the set with NFL Network. Rich Eisen asked me, Daniel Jeremiah, might have been Joel Klatt at the time. I can't remember over the 3 days. Out of the 6 first-round quarterbacks, how many of them will play this year, not injury, not whatever? And I said 5. I really do. I think 5 of them are going to play. I'm trying to remember who it was that I said wouldn't play. I guess Penix is the one I'm keeping off the field right now.
Because Williams your day 1 starter. You know Jaden Daniels is your day 1 starter. Drake May probably plays like week 7 or week 8. McCarthy should be your day 1 starter. Bo Nix is going to be your day 1 starter too. I'd be surprised if he isn't. So Penix, it's going to be Cousins.
I think some people are looking at Minnesota and thinking they very well could go Sam Darnold and
really?
JJ. Yeah, I've got some good football people that believe that it may not be, the pressure's not there to make him the starter right here, right now. But I'm with you. He will start, I think, more games than Darnold during the season. I think he will get the ball at some point. Other people are a little more, no, I think they might go Darnold a little bit longer. I was like, I don't think so. So you and I probably are matching up with some other people. And since we don't do anything that has to do with that G word, gambling, let's just do it for a friendly, hey, let's just talk about it
Speak
later.
for yourself, Charles.
Okay. But I can't. My contract says I can't do that stuff. So I'll just be in a heavy discussion with someone later, and maybe I'll have to wear their team hat or something like that.
Gotcha. Let me ask you two more things before we let you run about the 49ers and then the Bills. The Bills draft Keon Coleman early in the second round. They said goodbye to Steph Diggs. You have James Cook. You have Dalton Kincaid. Let me start you off with the Bills there, this new-look Buffalo Bills team. What do you think they're going to be able to do this year?
I think that they'll be in contention again because Sean McDermott, I think they're going to pump things up on defense. I think they're going to kind of follow a Kansas City model in a sense. Remember, Brandon Beane said you don't have to have a number one receiver to be successful. And Kansas City really didn't unless you're counting Travis Kelce as number one receiver. I'm pulling out my notes because I want to look at their draft picks again. Coleman is the right type of receiver for Buffalo, big, strong, physical, meaning he can handle December and January, all right? And a big arm quarterback who's going to throw howitzers at him. Look at what they did bumping up defense, though. Going with Cole Bishop, the safety. Remember, Poyer and Hyde are no longer working together in tandem. I think Poyer's in Miami, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. Anyway, they've got to do that. I thought that Dwayne Carter, an undersized but highly active defensive tackle, comes in, helps their rotation. But I love the pick of Ray Davis to run back from Kentucky. Why? I've been saying for years.
Former Al.
Run the ball in Buffalo. And finally, when Joe Brady took over, did they not run the football a heck of a lot more? Did James Cook not get a lot more touches? In fact, you could make an argument that if they ran the ball more against Kansas City, they would have come out of that game with a win. They had him on the run and kind of got away from him a little bit. Joe Brady fits Sean McDermott as a defensive head coach who's calling the defenses by running the football. That's why I think Buffalo's going to continue to find a way to be contenders, because you're never getting me to think that big old horse player, number 17 playing quarterback, is going to have you out of ball games. No chance. That big guy, he can start carrying people with him. This might be his Mahomes type of a time where he goes to total feature guy and everyone come along with him. I still say Buffalo's in the thick of things.
Last thing I'll ask you. Niners draft a wide receiver in the first round out of Florida, Ricky Pearsall. Yeah. I know that they didn't trade Ayuk, or they didn't trade Deebo Samuel at the draft. Do you think both of those guys will still be on the roster come week one?
Still hard to envision both of them on the roster. It still feels like they're going to make a decision and go. But I don't know where the trade opportunities and things come. But I do know this, Zach. If there is a team that likes to keep their people and finds ways, San Francisco is one of those teams. Deebo was disgruntled 2 years ago, and essentially he did our 2024, I'm taking my ball and going home. He scrubbed them from social media. They worked it out with him, right? They find ways to work it out with guys they want to keep. And believe me, Ricky Pearsall is not the replacement for either Deebo or Brandon Ayuk. He doesn't play like either one of them. Is somewhere in between. He's more of an extra accessory than he is a replacement. So I wouldn't be surprised if San Francisco found a way to make this whole thing work.
He is Charles Davis, does a great job always for CBS Sports and just kills it for the NFL Draft, for the NFL Network. Charles, thanks for the time. We appreciate it so much.
Always great to see you, Zach. Continued success. Take care of yourself.
You got it. Thanks so much. There he is, Charles Davis, with a comprehensive breakdown of all things NFL Draft. We'll take a timeout. We're coming on back. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network.
You're in a 4.5-minute break. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. 2 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Welcome back to the Infinity Sports Network.
And this portion of the show is brought to you by Netflix. Jerry Seinfeld stars in Unfrosted, a film that follows sworn serial rivals as they race to create a pastry that will change the face of breakfast, a tale of ambition, betrayal, and sugar. Unfrosted is rated PG-13 and premieres May 3rd, only on Netflix. All right, it is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Let me play one thing from the Pat McAfee show. I was watching this live, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So, Schefter was talking about the Giants and their attempt to trade up. And they got into this conversation on who were the teams that were actually trying to trade up to 3. And it was mentioned Minnesota, and it was mentioned also the Giants. Now, the Patriots earlier that morning, I guess when Schefter was checking in with the source, said any chance to trade the 3rd pick? They said 0 chance, no chance. So Schefter kept on bringing up how much the Giants loved Joe Alt. And they were hoping, and maybe it was a smokescreen, that they were going to take J.J. McCarthy at 6 so no one tried to jump them to get Joe Alt. Now, ultimately, we know Joe Alt ended up being the pick at 5 to the Chargers. But I find this fascinating. And I know not going for a top 30 visit isn't the make or break part, but you have the 5th overall pick in the draft. You would think one of your players on the top 30 visit would end up being one of the players you select. Joe Alt was on this show last week on Wednesday, and I asked him, I said, okay, a lot of people think you're going to be a Tennessee Titan. What about some other teams that are in front of them? And I mentioned the Giants, and I mentioned the Chargers. And he said, nope, no Chargers. Didn't have a top 30 visit with them, but I had a great visit with the Giants. So Schefter, when talking about the potential move up to 3, he actually envisioned a world where the Giants would have traded up from 6 to 3 And they would not have taken a quarterback, and they would have actually taken the big offensive tackle, 6'9" Joe Alt out of Notre Dame. Listen up to Schefter. This was earlier this AM on the Pat McAfee Show.
They talked to the Giants, and the Giants, I don't know that the Giants weren't for Joe Alt at 3 as opposed to the quarterback. I know we talked a lot about them.
The Giants really wanted Joe Alt.
Yeah,
sounds like it.
Yeah. I think they wanted Joe Alt. That's my suspicion based on things I've heard from people. It's unconfirmed. I want to be very clear about that, but that's what I believe is they wanted Joe Alt there. And for the right price, if they could have gotten up there and it made sense, they could have done that. But New England never came close to dealing that pick.
There's no way. There is no way. Could you imagine being a Giant fan? I'm just trying to envision. Thursday night, you're sitting there, you're watching the draft. You're sitting there, you're watching the draft. All this speculation about the Giants potentially moving up 3 to go get Drake May. Obviously, the J.J. McCarthy stuff was a smokescreen. But there was a lot of speculation the Giants trade up to 3 to get Drake May. And you get the breaking news alert. Giants trade up with the Patriots. And let's say they trade a future 1 next year. Which, I said this as a Pats fan. The only team I was interested in trading back with would be with the Giants because I wanted their future 1 if they were going to trade the pick because the Giants should be a bad football team this year. Could you imagine, though, the Giants move up from 6 to 3? They make you think they're taking a quarterback, and then they take an offensive lineman. Now, Joe Alt very may will go on to be a 10-year pro that's a Hall of Famer. I think Joe Alt, in my opinion, was the second best player in this draft. I had Marvin Harrison Jr. 1, and then Joe Alt in at number 2. But to trade up to 3 and use a future 1, I just don't buy it. It doesn't pass the smell test here. Like, the only way the Giants could have traded up from 6 to 3 would be to go take a quarterback and would be to go get Drake May. But a deal never came to fruition. This seems like, we all know Schefter has a very powerful voice. This seems like it's someone from the Giants that's trying to make publicly at least the conversation shift because the Giants gave up on Daniel Jones. They were done with Daniel Jones. They wanted to move on from Daniel Jones. But you don't just take a quarterback to take a quarterback. So by putting this story out there, they try to put out this front that they weren't really interested in a quarterback, try to give a little confidence boost to Daniel Jones, but I don't think that stuff really works because people aren't stupid. I don't think anyone actually believes that the Giants were trying to trade up to 3 for the right price to go get Joe Alt. If they were trading up from 6 to 3, it would have been for a quarterback. All righty, let me just get to this, and then we'll take a break and we'll get an update with Hack. 5 rookies will have the biggest year 1 impact. Let me give an honorable mention to Braden Fisk and Jared Verse as the combination, the 2 Florida State defensive linemen. And we know Verse is tremendous off the edge and Fisk is on the interior. The 2 of them, there's a lot of production to get replaced from Aaron Donald, a sack production getting replaced with Aaron Donald no longer in the building. Just doing it one guy was not going to work. They needed to bring in 2 really good defensive players. They were able to do that. Guys that have chemistry and synergy with their 1 year that they did spend together with the Florida State Seminoles. But let me get to 5 rookies who have the biggest year 1 impact. In at number 5, I'm going J.J. McCarthy. It was all about the landing spot for J.J. McCarthy. J.J. McCarthy landing in Minnesota is a really good match with Kevin O'Connell, the head coach. You have Justin Jefferson, who they got to pay. You got Jordan Addison. You got Aaron Jones. You got T.J. Hawkinson. If the Vikings start Sam Darnold week 1, that's just a dumb organization. There is no point in starting Sam Darnold week 1. J.J. McCarthy's NFL ready. You put him on the field. He can play the point guard role. I think J.J. McCarthy's going to have a very good rookie year for the Minnesota Vikings. In at number 4, it's Keon Coleman. The Bills needed a wide receiver. I know everyone crushed them on Thursday because they made 2 trades, and you saw a wide receiver go to Kansas City and a wide receiver go to the Panthers. They had the first pick in the 2nd round, and they got a guy who I thought was going to go in the 1st round, and I thought potentially Buffalo would need to trade up for to get in Keon Coleman. You now have a new identity in Buffalo. We all know Josh Allen's still the king there. But James Cook had a really good season a year ago. You also then saw the emergence down the stretch of a very good tight end out of Utah, and he was my favorite tight end, Dalton Kincaid. going back to the draft a year ago. And now you have that other wide receiver in Keon Coleman. I think the Bills, a lot of people are going to sleep on them, a lot of changes. When you look at the AFC, Buffalo, I still believe, will be the AFC's champion next year, and they will be a top 3 team in the AFC. Kansas City and Cincinnati will get the trust, but Buffalo's window is not slammed shut because you have 17. In at number 3, Xavier Worthy, the speedster that goes to Kansas City. That's an added luxury. New deal for Travis Kelce today. They get the money boosted up to him. Congratulations. You need another wide receiver. There's uncertainty what's going to happen from a legal situation with Rashee Rice, who was coming on strong at the end of the year. You go get a talented wide receiver. It's low risk, high reward. Kansas City's living in the penthouse where they've proven the last 2 years they don't need a number 1 wide receiver. Kelce is a number 1 option, but you don't need a number 1 wide receiver. They could still go win. To make that move, and also you kind of poke Buffalo a little bit, and the Buffalo Bills fans were trading with the Bills, I thought that was a very good selection. In at number 2, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. The Cardinals are in a position where they've already paid the quarterback. The quarterback's good. He has the ceiling of being great, but you got to put him in a position to succeed. He's now overcome the injury. That Cardinals team was gritty last year, and now you get him a number 1 option. Heck, Marvin Harrison Jr. made it happen last year with a average, below average quarterback. Now you get someone that has proven success in college. He's had a little bit of success in the NFL. I think Marvin Harrison Jr. and Kyler Murray is going to be a really good punch, a 1-2 punch. And then finally, it's Caleb Williams. I know he's the number 1 overall pick. I know it's low-hanging fruit, but it's easy. Caleb Williams last year, the reason why USC did not perform where they were was not his fault. It was that the outside Notre Dame game. That defense was atrocious. And you had a very stubborn coach in Lincoln Riley who kept his good friend in Alex Grinch way too long before I ended up firing him. Caleb Williams walks into, yes, the number 1 overall pick, but they weren't the number 1 overall pick because they stunk. It's because the Panthers stunk and they made a good trade. You have DJ Moore, you have Keenan Allen, you got Rome Odunze, you got DeAndre Swift, you got Cole Kmet, you got a good offensive lineman, you have to tackle last year at Tennessee. There is no reason why the Bears, who were 7 wins last year, shouldn't be able to get 2 more wins, be 9-8, maybe 3 more wins, be 10-7, and be a playoff team this year. So those are 5 rookies for me who will have the biggest year 1 impact. Honorable mention to Braden Fisk and Jared Verse as a duo, but then it's J.J. McCarthy, Keon Coleman, Xavier Worthy, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Caleb Williams. Zeke is back in Dallas. We're reacting to it next. And this is Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. Here with the latest Infinity Sports update is the Ackman, Rich Ackerman.
Infinity Sports Network Sports Flash.
More Zeke with Zach coming up, but Ezekiel Elliott returns to Dallas, hoping he has something left. The 3-time Pro Bowler gets a 1-year deal after spending last year in New England in which he had 642 yards rushing and just 3 touchdowns. Travis Kelce living the life right now, a Super Bowl champ again. Of course, he's dating Taylor Swift, and he is now the highest paid tight end in football, getting a 2-year extension with the Chiefs worth $34 million, while his retired brother, Jason, is joining ESPN's Monday Night Countdown. And more broadcasting news, Bill Sims and Boomer Esiason are leaving the NFL today, with Matt Ryan going from the booth to the studio. The Seattle Kraken have fired head coach Dave Haxtell after their 3 seasons together, and there is no word on a replacement at this time. Denver's title defense followed a strong regular season, and 3 straight wins have come to open the playoffs. The defending champs failed to pull off the sweep, falling on Saturday, but are home for tonight's Game 4 against the Lakers, while the Thunder will go for the sweep of the Pelicans tonight, and the night of action starts with the Celtics and Heat in Miami, with Boston up 2-1. I'm Rich Ackerman.
This is the Infinity Sports Network. Follow us on Instagram. Our handle is Infinity Sports Network. That's Infinity Sports Network to follow us on Instagram.
You're in a 5-minute break. 4 minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Four minutes remaining. Three minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Three minutes remaining. Two minutes, 30 seconds remaining. Two minutes remaining. One minute, 30 seconds remaining. One minute remaining. Forty-five seconds remaining. Thirty seconds remaining. Fifteen seconds. Break ends in 5 seconds.
Rock your body. Hey, this is Howie. And this is Nick from the Backstreet Boys. And you're listening to the Zach Gelb Show. And guess what? Zach is back. All right.
He's live. He's nationwide. This is the Zach Gelb Show.
Battle Creek, Michigan, 1963. Kellogg's and Post, sworn cereal rivals race to create a pastry that will change the face of breakfast forever. A wildly imaginative tale of ambition, betrayal, and menacing milkmen, sweetened with artificial ingredients, unfrosted stars. Jerry Seinfeld in his directorial film debut. It featured a supporting cast of comedian greats, including Melissa McCarthy, Jim Gaffigan, Hugh Grant, Amy Schumer, Max Greenfield, Christian Slater, Sarah Cooper, Bill Burr, and many more. Friday, May 3rd, only on Netflix. I have no clue what that's going to be about, but it seems very interesting. I did get to see Bill Burr once. I was at the Comedy Cellar 2 summers ago, I want to say. And he just walked in as he was en route to go to Long Island. And he stopped and did about like 20, 25 minutes at the Comedy Cellar, which was absolutely great. Also, let me get to our Ask the Pros question of the day. And, of course, the Ask the Pros question of the day is brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Jim in New Orleans says, Zach, who do you like in the 3 NBA games tonight? You can submit a question by tweeting at INFSportsNet, Sportsnet, or at Zach Gelb using the hashtag #AskThePros. You can think O'Reilly Auto Parts for all your car care needs. Get guaranteed low prices and excellent customer service from the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Celtics and Heat. We know how ugly that was in Game 2, where Miami hit all their shots, and it's Boston like, here you go again, and the Celtics just took it and destroyed the Heat in Game number 3. I think Boston's winning this series in 5. Maybe at most this goes to 6. I would think Boston wins tonight. They're a 10.5-point favorite. No Jimmy Butler still for Miami. You know that. I just don't think that, like, the Celtics, to me, they lose tonight. It will show you how much of a fraud they are. You look at the East. The Bucks are about to be out. No disrespect to the Pacers. Give them credit. But you look at Giannis now being banged up, Dame being banged up. The Knicks are a heck of a team, and they're going to be a good out. They're going to be a tough out with how tough Jalen Brunson plays. But really, the Celtics don't get to the NBA Finals this year. I know it's championship or bust. But if they don't get to the NBA Finals this year, it's extremely, and I mean extremely embarrassing. So I would think Boston has that killer instinct tonight, but whenever you think Boston's going to have that killer instinct, with this version of the Celtics, they usually disappoint, but I'll take the Celtics. Pelicans and Thunder, I don't need to see any more of this. And the reason why I don't need to see any more of this, it's just the injury reporting with Zion Williamson. Does anyone actually think Zion Williamson's coming back and playing in this postseason? Even if they somehow came back and won and got to the next series. I know they keep on saying he's progressing. I think that's a bunch of bull bleep. So he's out tonight. I know the NBA is usually always weird with this injury reporting, but he is out tonight. I think the Thunder roll here, and they're a wonderful story with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. And Stu, I buried the lead over the weekend. Your Lakers, they got on the board. They had a little fight. They had a little heart. Now this goes back to Denver. You know what? I will place a wager tonight. I'll load up on the Denver Nuggets laying 6.5 points. See, those games have been close. The Lakers take big leads, and they usually choke them up, and they end up losing. So I can get burned that way. But, Stu, on a scale of 0 to 100, where's your confidence that the Lakers actually win this game tonight?
0 to 100, maybe like a 8 to 10, 8, 9, 10. Maybe I give a 1 in 10 chance.
I'm surprised you're that optimistic.
Yeah, they've been close in a lot of the series, but no, they're not going to win tonight.
You've actually been, can I say it, you've been impressed with the Lakers considering where you thought they were going to be heading into this series.
Yes.
They have exceeded your expectations, which shows you how low the expectations were when we're talking about them blowing leads left and right. They win one game. It was game 4, and now we have a game 5 tonight. See, I needed a game 5 last year with Denver and the Lakers because I had tickets for game 5 in Denver, and I couldn't even get to the game 5 of the conference finals. Now in round 1, of course, a year later, they give you a game 5. I like Denver. I like Denver big tonight, laying the 6.5 points. I actually did a Sports Minute about this. With the playoffs going on and the teams that are still in it, not the teams that lost in the play-in tournament, all that. the three players I enjoy the most, and I don't know how this is up for debate a lot. Like, maybe you could say Shai Gilgeous-Alexander should be on this list somewhere, but the three players personally that I've enjoyed watching the most this year that have also been in the postseason, I know it's a very early postseason. Jalen Brunson, just New York, especially New York basketball, has needed a leader. They've needed a tough player. And Leon Rose knows him better than anybody, outside of his family. Leon practically is family to the Brunson family. And when they got him, a lot of people thought that was an overpay. Jalen Brunson's been a star. He had 47 points yesterday. And do me a favor, Stu, play me that clown, Kelly Oubre Jr. Like, Jalen Brunson cooks your ass, cooks your team, and this is what Kelly Oubre Jr. said about how Jalen Brunson got to 47 points.
What do you think has allowed him to get in the rhythm?
34 shots. I mean, yeah, he's a great player. Great player. I love playing against him. I love his game. He has a lot of fundamentals and skill set to his game. But, anybody shoots 34 shots that has skill, and that's a great player. They're going to be able to do well. And especially you get screens, you're getting mismatches, and you're trying to find the right matchups and things like that. Like, he's a great player. He's going to capitalize on those things. But, it was due to happen, obviously. JB is a great player. He's been playing well, doing this all year long. So just because I say he shot 34 shots doesn't mean he's going to stop shooting them, because that's what they need him to do.
Oh, what a clown. The guy cooked your team. He had 47 points, 10 assists, and only turned over the ball one time. And you have to say, oh, he only took 34 shots. He should be able to get the points. Like, come on. He was dominant defensively. He even got injured and had to leave after a bad hit by Embiid. He dominated you in that game. Just stop. Just give someone credit without taking a jab at them. But Brunson, Anthony Edwards, and Nikola Jokic, I know it's nothing new with Nikola Jokic, but watching those three have been a joy this postseason. And Anthony Edwards, man, you want to talk about a mentality. The Curry-like three that he hit the other day, and then he follows it up throwing down in your face. Dude, he's got a Michael Jordan mentality where he doesn't care who's in front of him. He doesn't care what people say about him. He is going to cook you. And Nikola Jokic, I think at this point, every time he steps on the court, I know he doesn't have a great personality, but you know that you're witnessing history. And you know that he's just adding on to another chapter of being one of the greatest players of all time. And ultimately, it's going to come down to how many championships he wins and things like that. But I don't know how you stop that guy. He's an assist machine. He's a rebounding machine. We know what he could do scoring the ball. His defense is underrated. He's an NBA champion. He's an NBA Finals MVP. He's already two-time NBA most valuable player. And probably going to win MVP again this year. I don't know how you stop him. So those are the three players I personally enjoy the most. And then, hey, what Shai Gilgeous-Alexander's doing as well, it's been very remarkable. So in terms of tonight, Stu, sorry. I like the Nuggets to end your season, put you out of your misery. I like the Thunder, and I also like the Boston Celtics. All right, before we go, the Cowboys said they were all in this offseason. And maybe their biggest free agent signing is you can't even do the I'm coming home anymore. So let's go Bon Jovi. Who says you can't go home? Ezekiel Elliott. Zeke is back. It's usually Zach is back. Now it's Zeke is back. Maybe we'll get the Backstreet Boys to sing that one. But Ezekiel Elliott returning to Dallas. And I'll give credit to Zeke. I thought Zeke was washed when he left the Cowboys. Zeke had a very good season in New England. But that's the big move. This just shows you, I'm not saying it's a bad move, but Jerry Jones just cares about making headlines. Jerry Jones is just all about the drama. They have not improved this football team this year. And instead, they just talk about how much they have to pay Dak, but they're not going to pay Dak this offseason. How much they have to pay CeeDee Lamb, no deal done. How much they have to pay Micah Parsons, no deal done. That's all they do is talk. I think there is a good chance and a legit chance that the Cowboys miss the playoffs this year. I know that team has talent, and I know the NFC is not a monster conference where you go 9-8, you should make it. But you have a coach who's a lame duck head coach, and you have a quarterback who doesn't have a contract extension. And if he wants to get to free agency because there's no tag clause, he gets to free agency. But the Eagles, I think, are going to be better than them. The Lions will be better than them. All those NFC North teams have a chance to make the playoffs. Doesn't mean they all will. The Falcons should make the playoffs. The Niners are a heck of a team. The Rams are a heck of a team. Seahawks aren't a bunch of scrubs. Like, there's a chance that this is the year where maybe the Cowboys go 9-8, miss the postseason. They go 8-9, miss the postseason. I know last 2 years have been 12 wins, and they just fail in the postseason. But I do not like the tone around the Cowboys. And there are signs when you eventually have a team go under. You know, they've been able to weather the storm the last 3 years, impress you at times in the regular season. In the postseason, it has been a disaster. An absolute disaster. And I don't like this roster, how it's currently constructed. So, congratulations. The Cowboys, they get a Ezekiel Elliott. Whoo, you're bringing him back. Maybe they'll wrap presents. Maybe they'll be in Hard Knocks again. They'll wrap presents. Dak and Zeke. This is one of the lowlights of that terrible version of Hard Knocks that the Cowboys were on. And Jerry Jones put like 9,000 shakes of the salt shaker all over that McDonald's sandwich. That's all I remember from that Hard Knocks. Big thanks to Charles Davis. Big thanks to each and every one of you. Big thanks to Stu, Moist Mike as well. We'll be back manana, everybody, at 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. It is the Zach Gelb Show on the Infinity Sports Network. We out. Bye-bye. Enjoy your night, everybody. Peace.